we get the maximum value out of today's event. So when Asif and the team asked me to come and direct the program, I was reminded of the animal farm, to say some animals are more equal than others, and today I'm that animal. Of course, that is much, much more equal than all of you. So until then, please allow me to be the most equal animal here, as I'll be directing the programs. Yeah. So perhaps to get the formalities started, we DPSA, and then of course all of the executive directors, our partners, Digital Council, the colleagues at Microsoft, and all of the other guests. Good afternoon to everybody. As you would have seen from the invite, today's event is really focused on advancing digital transformation, and I believe that through the conversations we're going to have today, we'll be able to get to a point of at least agreeing on what this digital transformation is and how do we progress the various policies, the various frameworks, and the discussions forward. September is also Public Sector Month, and being Public Sector Month is of course not just a commemoration, but it's really recognition of all of the work or the hard work that the public servants in all of the spheres of government do, and how they are dedicated and contribute in various ways tirelessly. So we are aware of that, and we really want to acknowledge all of the public servants. Perhaps let's give a nice warm round of applause to all the public servants. Thank you. Today we also have the opportunity of, and I'm going to jump to that slide quickly, we also have the opportunity of seeing some paperless government demos, which will be displayed outside. And I know it's very rich coming from me, who's got a whole wad of papers here. But indeed, the intention is there to find a way of us to progress government. And outside, you'll see the demos that we've listed there, specifically on the Z83, audit findings, tender management, e-leave, and some chatbot scenarios. In terms of the flow of the program, we've already gone past the arrival and registration, and of course are now commencing with the various sessions today. Let me, without any further ado, call upon Mr. Vino Govender from the Digital Council Africa. Can we give him a nice warm round of applause as he comes up to the stage?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the intro and the organizer of this event. And more importantly, thank you to each one of you for making the time to attend, because your valued contributions and insights plays a critical role in advancing the digital transformation agenda of government at the various levels and tiers. I thought I would start off by just reflecting on why we're here, because digital transformation is an ongoing process, and innovation is an ongoing process. What's the impact? What's the purpose? What's the intent of what this entire movement is around? Coming out of BRICS that we just came out of recently, there were some key themes. I think one of the key themes from BRICS was strengthening the post-pandemic socio and economic recovery so that we attain the 2030 agenda, which is underpinned by the Sustainability Development Goals. So you'll see, I took a position from an opening remarks perspective to talk about the role that digital transformation and innovation has, especially from the public sector perspective, towards reaching our sustainable development goals. There's about 17 of these sustainable development goals. I'm sure we're all well versed and have been exposed to them. So it's really critical that we kind of work towards them, because they drive a sustainable and inclusive society. Transforming education and skills in the sector is, it was one of the key themes that came out of BRICS. The other one was, sustaining multilateral and multi-focus type of reform. And one of the key things that they talked about there was, we're coming out of Women's Month, is the inclusion and representation of women, at different levels and in the technology sector as well. So, from an opening remark perspective, if I could just sum it up there, it's the impact, intent, and purpose of digital transformation has a strong impact on us achieving a sustainability development agenda of 2030. Just focus quickly on goal 16, which is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Now, if you all just reflect on that goal, you will see that a big impetus or onus is placed on government in terms of, and the public sector in terms of driving and enabling technologies, policies, processes, and actions to kind of achieve this type of goal. It's interesting that 13 out of the 17 goals that we have in the SDGs, are related directly to public service delivery. Of the 169 targets that they set for these goals collectively, 59 are related to public service delivery. And, of the 230 indicators that cascade upwards to these goals, is about 230 indicators. 66 require public services that are delivered by public service institutions to be delivered. So, we can no doubt see the impact that digital transformation, innovation, and innovation has in achieving this. And then, keeping with the theme of digital technologies, I said, let's go to some data, and because we talk about data and some data points and some stats, around this. Now, and I'm going to just cover 4 stats. They're publicly available. The reference to those documents are there. They largely come from the United Nations research departments, the social economic advisory area, and just the World Bank development report sections, right? So what we see, on your left-hand side, on your I would call it your y-axis, is your e-government development index, and the e-government development index, kind of reflects the extent to which governments drive policy, implement actions, make services available to their citizens, to communicate with them, or to make e-government services available to them. And what you see here is your e-participation on your y-axis. So it tells you the level to which participation happens. But more importantly, those dots, as they move across, tell you what is representative of another index. And that's called the Leave No One Behind index. Now, the Leave No One Behind is one of the mantras that come out of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. And, when it comes to leaving, sorry about that. And so it actually reflects the level at which we eradicate poverty, we drive digital inclusion, we drive economic inclusion. And so what you see there is that, what comes out of this picture, the key theme is that there's a positive correlation between e-government development index, which is driven by by digital government or public sector digital transformation and innovation. There's a positive relationship between that and e-participation of citizens, as well as inclusion, socioeconomic inclusion. And that you can see, and that's reflected in the Leave No Behind Index. So it just reflects the importance of what you all are doing, in driving digital transformation, the impact, intent, and that it has. Is there a problem, sir? Okay. Okay. So the next graph I am looking at now is the e-government development index and the governance effectiveness index, right? So these are two indices that have been put together, right? And okay, is that much better?
Yes.
Okay. So the governance, go back to that slide. So the governance effective index, that kind of reflects, perceptions of quality, availability, and relevance of public services that are delivered by government to citizens. And it reflects, it also reflects, the credibility and quality of policy and the implementation of that policy, as well as government's commitment to the achievement or implementation of those policies. And why is this important, right? When you have an effective and efficient government, you have positive social impact. It also sets a very positive climate for investment climate. And we know, I come from an infrastructure background, fiber infrastructure, tower infrastructure, and these infrastructures require investment from the private sector to be rolled out. And without that, you're not going to close that connectivity gap. The access to connectivity, what we often refer to as bridging the digital divide. So, to a large extent, this relationship between this positive relationship means that digital transformation and innovation contributes to creating a conducive investment environment for the rollout of infrastructure and making connectivity available to the less connected. The next slide, the next one we're looking at is it looks at the same slide, same indicator, the Government Development Index, but we look at it in relation to the Gender Inequality Index. And what you see, there's an inverse relationship between e-Government Development Index and the Gender Inequality Index. What it actually means is that as we improve our digital index, digital index, the gap in gender inequality closes. And a very practical example in South Africa, we've got a very large migrant workforce. And, so normally you find, at that level, a lot of the men are working in industries away from their homesteads, and the women and kids are left behind. And, by making services available in those areas, which drive the y-axis up, index up, by making services available, access to services. And what are those services? Education, health, the ability to have a platform on which they can be heard, and where they can also interact with similar groups from other societies or other countries. It drives a very positive socio-economic impact, especially within at a gender level. So it closes the gender inequality gap. And then I think the next index that we're looking at is the e-government
what we refer to is it's a sub-index of the e-government readiness index, development index, and it's called the online service index, right? And that's in relation to the corruption perception index, which is important as well, and I'll tell you why. You know, the online service index reflects the extent to which government kind of digitalizes its processes. It delivers more public services on digital platforms, like the one that was introduced earlier. The Z83 application, online applications for grants, that kind of stuff. And when processes are digitized and digitalized, what happens is there's an audit trail behind it. It is very transparent. You're dealing with a system, not a person. It enforces compliance. And by doing that, what happens is you kind of close the gates or tighten the loops on corruptive activities. And this is important as well because, as we know, when we do investment, I'm talking at a commercial level. One of the things that we look at, our investors look at is the country risk report, right? And corruption to an extent is one of the indicators that sit there. So it plays a very important role, and this positive correlation between is an important one. So as digital transformation and innovation happens, and we deliver more of these applications to kind of close the loops on corrupt type of activities, we're in a better position to attract investment that's needed to kind of fund infrastructure, application, platform, skills development, and rolled out. So those are the four kind of stats that I just wanted to just talk about, and I hope it sets the tone, for the rest of the proceedings. And I just want to close by saying that, digital transformation and innovation, like I mentioned, this is just a glimpse of just some of the impact that it has at a socioeconomic, country profiling and investment attraction level. And in the work that we do, in the work that each one of you do in your departments, either whether it's setting policy, whether it's developing processes or digitizing processes, developing and innovating new applications that drive positive correlations at a sustainability level. That's the impact that we have. And we as the Digital Council, I must say we are committed to this cause. We've done a lot of work on the demand side in terms of policy comments, in fact also contributing to policy forming, driving initiatives for skills development, and not just skills development, also paying very specific attention to skills development in specific areas, digital skills development for youth, digital skills development for women, and it's something that we'll continuously work at, and we're thankful to be part of this journey for it towards a more digital and efficient South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinu, and apologies for the disruption while you were busy presenting. Very insightful presentation. I've certainly learned a lot in terms of the research. I know there's a question and answer session later, but it's really interesting to see the research that has been conducted by Digital Council. And I think during the break, Vino will reach out to you to get a few more insights on that. Before I forget, I heard 2 cell phones ringing when Vino was busy presenting. I don't know if I was the only one, but what I wanted to request is, please, if we can put our cell phones on silent. There are guests online or participants as well online, and of course, when the cell phones are ringing, they do somehow interfere with the streaming that is currently happening. We move on then to the opening remarks by Mr. Mlindi Mashologu, who's the Deputy Director General for Information Society and Capacity Development at the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. Can we please give him a nice warm round of applause as he comes up to do the opening remarks?
Oh, thank you, Program Director. DT, DPSA Presidency, Executive Director of CPSI, May Lydia Sebokedi with your team here, executives from CETA, led by Mr. Mukhashwa here in front of me. Ms. Lerato Matabata from Microsoft, Mr. Wandile Mnganyana and Mr. Dave Ives from PwC, members of GTalk, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank you today, colleagues, for joining us in this event, where we gather. Oh gosh, I think someone has to come and assist me here. I think there is a presentation that is running. All right. Okay. No, thank you, colleagues, for joining us on this event, where we gather to discuss a topic of great significance, which is digitizing our government. So I am honored to stand before you today, colleagues, as a representative of South African government, in particular our department, which is the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, led by our Director General, Ms. Nankubera Jotantyane, who's just been confirmed as a DG of the department. So South Africa, like the rest of the world, is experiencing a rapid shift towards a digital future. So our ability to embrace and harness this transformation will not only define our success as a nation, but also have a profound impact on the well-being of our citizens. The public sector, being the cornerstone of governance and service delivery, must then lead the way in this journey of change. Colleagues, we do live in an era where digital technologies have the power to revolutionize the way we govern, the way we deliver services, and the way we engage with our citizens. COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated this shift, demonstrating that digital tools are not just a convenience at times, but a need. Remote work, virtual education, to name just a few, became lifelines for many, underscoring the urgency of digital transformation. So our government's digital transformation journey is not an option, but a necessity. We must reimagine how we interact with our citizens, deliver public services, manage resources, and make data-driven decisions. In doing so, we can improve efficiency, transparency, and accountability while meeting ever-evolving needs of our diverse population. I just want to touch a few pillars, colleagues, of our digital transformation, the areas that we need to focus on. The first area being the digital infrastructure. To truly advance, we need a robust digital infrastructure that connects every corner of our nation. We must bridge the digital divide, ensuring that even remote communities have access to high-speed internet. This infrastructure is the foundation upon which all other digital initiatives are going to be built on. The second point, becoming data as a strategic asset. Data is a lifeblood of the digital age. We must treat it as a strategic asset, responsible, collected, managed, and leveraged to inform decision making. In South Africa, we have an opportunity to unlock vast potential by harnessing data for improved governance and public service delivery. Cybersecurity. As we embrace these digital technologies, we must also fortify our defenses against cyber threats. Cybersecurity should not be an afterthought. It's a prerequisite for trust and reliability in the digital era. Capacity building and development. I think that's an area that we need to really focus on as well, colleagues. So our public servants and society as a whole must be equipped with skills and knowledge necessary to navigate the digital landscape. Continuous training and development are essential to ensure that our workforce remains adept at utilizing the latest technologies effectively. The innovation culture. Cultivating innovation within the public service and society is paramount. We must encourage experimentation, reward creative problem solving, and embrace the mindset that welcomes change. And I think as we are sitting here, we really need to focus on that, colleagues. At least we do have a center for public sector innovation that is here with us. The other point that I just want to touch on is the collaboration and inclusivity. No one entity can drive this transformation alone. Collaboration between government, private sector partners, academia, and civil society is essential. We need to co-create solutions, share expertise, and leverage resources to achieve our goals. Moreover, inclusivity is key. Our digital transformation efforts must consider the needs and aspirations of all South Africans, leaving no one behind. We must address issues of accessibility, affordability, digital literacy to ensure that the benefits of technology are accessible to everybody. So our journey, colleagues, towards the digitized government is an embodiment of our commitment to improve service delivery and meet evolving expectations of our people. Our minister always reminds us that we are not about technology for the sake of technology. What matters is how we enhance and harness these technologies to meet the needs of person in Nkanduli, in Kobo, where I come from, colleagues. For an example. So the significance of this endeavor is underscored by the fact that the Department of Public Service and Administration commemorates the Public Service Month every September. This is a time for us to reflect on a critical role that digital transformation plays in enhancing service delivery. Today, on this 5th day of September, we gather here to focus specifically on the digital government, an area that holds immense potential to reshape the way our government operates. The DCDT's collaboration with Microsoft SA, the Digital Council Africa, and other partners have provided us with an opportunity to engage key government stakeholders responsible for policy. ICT remains the greatest area of opportunity for improving availability and efficiency of provision of government services to the citizens. However, there is an evidence that the adoption and the use of ICTs has been rather haphazard and uncoordinated. I think that's a known fact, colleagues, especially from us who are in government. So our department, DCDT, has developed the National E-Government Strategy and Roadmap in 2017, which was ultimately approved by Cabinet. The implementation of this strategy aims to guide the digital transformation for the public services in South Africa into an inclusive digital society where citizens can benefit from the opportunities offered by digital technologies to improve their quality of life. Notwithstanding the progress that has been made, an integrated approach will contribute positively to realization of the objectives of the National Development Plan, as well as leveraging government plans and programs in collaboration with private sector to provide government services in an effective manner. As it is now, a total of 255 government services, but Tupilo services have been identified for digitalization in consultation with DPSA and GCIS to modernize the government business processes. In collaboration with CETA, our department has facilitated the creation of an e-government services portal. Colleagues, I would like all of you to go on that portal. It's eservices.gov.za. There are services that are in there. So currently we do have 120 services that are in there. And from the statistics that we have taken, we see that we are seeing 300,000 users monthly that are accessing the portal. And this is one of the areas that we just need to focus on as well, to see which services are the people accessing, and making sure also that we can enhance those services. But colleagues, we have to understand that CETA is at the center of the digital transformation in the public service. Though we acknowledge the current service delivery challenges faced by client departments, our department has started the process of to remodel CETA to be the agency that can drive the digital transformation. So CETA has to improve its competitiveness in delivering services to the government for citizen convenience, while ensuring that cybersecurity risks are mitigated and citizen data is protected. This will ensure that CETA becomes a strategic partner, a trusted advisor on digital assertiveness, as well as an innovator, tackling problems of tomorrow with today's FOIR technologies and insights. In closing, Program Director, the digital future of South Africa rests in our hands. We have an opportunity to build a more transparent, effective, and responsive public sector that truly serves the needs of our citizens. The path to success will not be without challenges, but together we can overcome them. Let us embrace this era of digital transformation with optimism, resilience, and commitment to innovation. DCDT stands to partner with all institutions, entities, companies, and individuals who wish to harness the power of technology in enabling a connected and digital transformed South Africa. Let us work collaboratively, inclusively, and tirelessly to ensure that our public sector becomes a beacon of progress, setting an example to the world. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, DDG. What is that website again? eservices.gov.za. Will I get information about birth? Okay. Okay. Agriculture?
Yes.
Okay. No, indeed.
You will definitely get that.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you so much, DDG. Can we give the DDG another round of applause as he proceeds to take his seat?
I think also we are going to have some message from DBSA.
Oh, from here?
They're going to put it through here now. So I just wanted to.
All right, while the team is busy sorting that out, I thought I'd share a few insights regarding transformation and collective knowledge. We always speak about digital transformation, but where we find ourselves at the moment is truly in an era of transformation where, as the DDG has just said, we've got eservices.gov.za. That's really another way of the government demonstrating to the citizens and bringing services closer to the citizens. From a collective knowledge point of view, we're truly appreciative of CETA, who's of course the state IT company, in their direction and in their partnership with the various government entities in providing solutions, services, and importantly, also predicting and providing a roadmap for the future. And as we continue the conversations today, we're going to see how and what are the ways and means that we can advance digital transformation in our various entities, whether private or public, with the goal of providing citizens a better service. We're going to get a message from the DPSA. I believe we're almost ready to be able to do that. Are they not gonna talk? Okay, there we go. This is it. Thank you. Is there audio?
Greetings to our citizens and the public servants. My name is Yoli Somakasi, the Director General of the Department of Public Service. It is a public service month, a time when we come together as public servants to celebrate and elevate our commitment to serving our people. The Public Service Month is an integrated strategic national program in which all national and provincial departments participate. It is our opportunity to enhance service delivery and take it to new heights of productivity. This year, the 2023 Integrated Public Service Month will focus on building a professional public service for inclusive quality service delivery. We will be reflecting on the values and principles of public administration as enshrined in our Constitution and the National Development Plan 2030. To kick off this exciting program in the month of September, our Minister Lukalu, will launch the 2023 Integrated Public Service Month on August 31st at the East London International Convention Centre. During this month, our dedicated public servants will go above and beyond the call of duty to make a difference. We will roll up our sleeves and spring clean at the service delivery points. We will visit schools and hospitals, police stations, courts, and engage citizens and mediate service delivery and get things done. Our focus will be on service delivery. We will unblock bottlenecks and cut through the red tape to ensure seamless service delivery. Our focus will be on making our systems and infrastructure work efficiently, using public resources wisely for the benefit of the citizens. With this Public Service Month, we recommit ourselves as public servants to belonging, caring, and serving our people in line with the Matrikulia principles. Together, we will build a capable, professional, and developmental public service South Africa deserves. Please join us, South Africans, as we celebrate Public Service Month 2023, and together let's make a difference and create a brighter future for all. We are building a professional public service for inclusive, quality service delivery. I thank you.
Thank you so much to the DG and the message from the DPSA. And it certainly sets, from the DDG's message to what we've just heard from the DG, it certainly sets the tone for the keynote address for this afternoon, which will be delivered by Mr. Lucas Mohashwa, who is the Chief Strategist for Networks, Internet, Perimeter Security at the State IT Agency. I'm not sure if I missed out anything, Mr. Mohashwa, but so far you're the Chief Strategist for all of those areas that I have mentioned. Please, let's welcome him with a nice warm round of applause as he comes to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. Yeah, I'm responsible for strategy at SITA and everything else they want me to do. So I'm serious. Sometimes I feel like a handyman at SITA. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we all are aware, digital transformation is something very simple to do. All it needs is the willingness of all critical stakeholders in the country to work together towards achieving that. First of all, it should start with political willingness. And there's a whole lot of other enablers of this particular initiative. A whole lot of countries have done it. There was a survey that was shown just now from that e-government survey of 2022. One of the key reasons that survey was done is to ensure that there is benchmarking amongst countries. We should learn from those countries. We should shape policies and strategies and share from those. We should facilitate intergovernmental discussions and collaboration. And finally, it says digital transformation is critical. It's not a standalone. It's an integral part of the functioning of public services and service delivery. So, and one of the messages that the DG of the DPSA mentioned is that we should focus on service delivery. And together, let's make a difference. So, colleagues, without any further ado, I'm just going to go through some of the key things I want to talk about. So one of the reasons we have to do digital transformation is to basically improve the productivity of government so that they can be in a position to provide services to the citizens of the country and the businesses of the country. So that's one of the key things that we need to focus on. The benefits of digital transformation, one is efficiency. So I mean, digital systems will ensure that all the administrative systems within the country work appropriately. Transparency, basically it makes sure that anything that happens within government is transparent, the processes. And it will also help reduce corruption and all unsightly experiences we have in our country today if we do it properly. Citizen engagement is another key component of that. This will ensure that our citizens will participate in the transacting of engagement with government. And this is very critical because government exists, amongst other things, to serve those particular citizens. And if we create a platform where they can be in a position to engage through available digital services, then that will be a big win for our country and for our government. Related to efficiency is the issue of cost savings. One of the key things you will find in South Africa is that there is a lot of duplication of effort across the board. So if you look at government holistically, probably more than 70% of the solutions government needs is probably common. The other 30% or less are what we call departmental unique systems or processes that can be done for that particular division or department. So what is key about that is that why don't we focus our efforts on avoiding duplication of effort across the board, leveraging existing solutions within South Africa and globally, and ensure that we can reuse what can be reused and customized for South Africa to ensure that we can quickly transform our country and enable service delivery to our citizens. And the other one benefit is that if you have digital transformation capabilities, for instance, cloud and other tools that are currently available, it will enable quick innovation in terms of delivering solutions and basically making our government relevant and up to date in terms of the needs of the citizens of the country. So those are some of the key benefits of that. But there's a number of barriers, that the things that have made it impossible for us as SETA, I come from SETA, and for government to be able to digitally transform. As I indicated, the first one is the siloed strategies and siloed decision making. So there's different mandates. I mean, we have a number of strategies that have been developed across government, mostly to address issues of digital transformation. But because of the siloed nature of the way we approach things, it becomes a very difficult situation for everybody to work together. There's no proper collaboration, there's no proper engagement, buy-in across all critical stakeholders for us to be able to transform government and the country. We have what we call a risk-averse culture, colleagues. A reluctance to change. Let me give an example. We all know that one of the biggest pain points in this country is the Z83 form, right? But we are not allowed to. That's a simple thing to fix. Why have we not done it in the past 24 years, 30 years? The solutions exist. I know they exist. Microsoft showed me one that they have done. Within a week, they did that solution. So why can't we address those particular issues? Why don't we just bite the bullet and just do it? Because it's going to relieve our citizens from the pain of having to go to a police station, queue for certifications and all those kind of things. There's a whole lot of things that thing can do. Well, ultimately, it will probably have to integrate with education department to get qualifications so that people don't have to certify documents. People don't have to fill in paper all along. I'm just giving you one simple example. But the good thing is that I know the DCDT are working on some of those things. Mlindi did not talk about it. So the other key issue that we have within South Africa is the issue of skills. So digital skills, I know Zaid and the Department of Public Service and Administration did a survey of capabilities within the public sector, and there's a whole lot of gaps that they've identified that we need to fill. It also exists within SETA. We've got a whole lot of skills gaps within SETA in the country. We also engage a lot with SMMEs within South Africa in terms of skills. There's a whole lot of gaps. But together we can fill those gaps and train those people to be able to, first of all, develop digital solutions, and secondly, to be able to use digital solutions so that the solutions developed can be adopted through the usage by the citizens of this country. The next item is the issue of funding. I don't actually consider this a barrier. If we were to, come together and prioritize initiatives that needs to be done, sufficient funding will be available to digitalize government. Because we are duplicating efforts, there's no economies of scale, then we end up having issues with funding. But I believe that funding is not a real issue. We have budgets allocated to everyone on a yearly basis, reviewed twice a year or something like that. We can fund digital initiatives. We partner with industry as well around some of those things. And if we go on a risk-based approach, a revenue sharing approach with those particular suppliers, we should be able to come up with solutions around dealing with the issue of funding, provided there is a win-win situation at the end of the day. And then finally is resourcing. Resourcing in terms of infrastructure, tools, the sharing of data and so forth. All those resources, we should share those resources, leverage those resources. Some of our departments, before you can be able to share data with them, you have to write MOUs and all those kind of documents. We're all doing it for the same purpose, to try and digitalize government and improve service delivery. But there's also enablers and focus areas, colleagues, that we need to consider. One is, as I said earlier, government leadership and policies. So if we have that leadership within government, I know there's currently initiative underway to address these issues. I can tell you now that there's what we call an interministerial committee that has been formed to address this particular issue. So this particular digital transformation is being driven at the highest level in government. And yesterday I attended FOSAD. FOSAD is Forum of South African Director Generals. So they were talking about this as well. So we did speak to them about this, and they are serious about accelerating digital transformation in South Africa. So let's not worry too much about it, but the issue of policies as well. So my statement says here, clear policies and directives. So some of the policies within South Africa are conflicting. or contradicting each other. So we need to make sure there's policy clarity across the board, and those policies must be enabling. At the moment, some of the policies are barriers. That's why I put it as a barriers here. So we need to have policies that will enable data sharing, policies that will ensure that we can collaborate as public servants to try and digitalize this government of ours. So collaboration and partnership is critical. So if we don't work together as department, public entities, and partner with industry out there, we will never succeed. I know for a fact that at SITA we are on a drive to deal with the issues of partnerships, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. Partnerships are critical in terms of collaboration, in terms of leveraging the capabilities of our partners where we lack, and in terms of sharing of risk, especially when it comes to the funding of initiatives, the reuse of initiatives that those partners may have already done somewhere else. Partnership also extends to other governments globally that have already done digital transformation in their environments. Today, my MD is in Estonia. He is trying to learn how they have done it. So hopefully when he comes back, we'll be able to reuse some of those lessons learned. A lot of countries have done it. The UK have done it, Singapore, South Korea. So it's all out there. Let's try and leverage some of those existing solutions and customize them for South Africa, and make sure that ultimately South Africans can be in a position to maintain and support those particular solutions. And then investment in infrastructure, I spoke about that a lot, but one of the key things that we're looking at in terms of partnerships is also to partner with people that have already got infrastructure laid down across the country already. There's a lot of data centers that are of the highest levels of tiering in the country. Why must we build new ones? There's infrastructure in terms of networking across the country through telcos, through other network service providers. Why don't we leverage those things? Where there's a need for sovereignty, we make sure that happens. Where there's a need for security, we make sure that happens. But the key thing is, let us leverage what already exists in South Africa for the benefits of our country and our people. For instance, Telkom has got over 170,000 kilometers of fiber in South Africa. Why don't we leverage it? Why don't we partner with Telkom and say, connect the people that are unconnected in the rural areas, in underserviced areas? So those are some of the things that we can leverage off. And then digital skills. This one is, I don't think this one is a difficult one to do. A lot of the service providers we deal with in the industry are willing to assist in developing our country and our people in terms of digital skills. We also have entities that are specifically focusing on digital skills. We've got NEMISA, which is part of the DCDT, that also focuses on that. So let us leverage that. There's the ICT sector as well that also does that. So why don't we leverage these enablers that already exist within South Africa so that we can be in a position to accelerate the transformation of this country? So I came up with about 5 focus areas that I think will help us get there quicker maybe. Infrastructure improvement, as I said, there's already infrastructure that exists. Let's leverage that so that we can give access to the people that need it the most. You can't develop digital solutions and then there's nobody who's going to consume those services. Hence, there's a need for us to ensure there is proper access. E-government services. Today you go to one department, you do one thing, the next one you do the other thing. Why don't we create capabilities whereby people can do something, whatever they need to do with government at one place? One window concept, that's what other countries call it. Or we can create kiosks where people can go in there and try and do whatever they have to do with somebody that is available to assist the people that cannot do it on their own. So those things are possible. Other countries have done them. So we should leverage those particular solutions or designs. So it's not about the solution, how the concept itself. we can look at that concept and see how we can craft it for South Africa in a much easier way. Then the other most important component is data. I think one the issue that was raised by Didi Jimlin, data. Data sharing and data security are critical. So we need to make sure we preserve and secure the data within South Africa. It's a very critical asset. We can use it for decision making, we can use it for planning, and all other needs that we may have. We can use it actually in government. We can monetize data to make sure that the private sector can pay for access to the use of government data so that we can have some sufficient funds to pay for grants. It rhymes, eh? And then capacity building, right? Government employees need to be trained to be able to do their jobs, to be able to use digital capabilities. They're the front line of engaging with the citizens, so let us make sure they also have the relevant skills to engage with the citizens and all their stakeholders. But most importantly, regulatory reforms. So this one is very passionate for me because I run innovation as well as SETA. It's one of my other pet projects there. So currently you can go out on a hackathon, invite the brightest of the brightest in the country to come and develop solutions. But after that, they say you must go and attend. You can't just implement that solution. So we need to influence regulations within the country to make sure that they are enabling. Enabling in terms of SMMEs, localization. So we don't have any set-asides for locally developed solutions to say, government, for locally developed solutions, you don't have to follow this particular process. We can quickly implement them, provided they are pre-vetted and certified to be able to be used. So those are some of the kind of things that we engage SMMEs on, because together with them, we want to approach government on the easing of some of the restrictions that are embedded in our legislation. The PFMA has got very good intentions, but it's also very, it's a huge barrier to innovation in this country. So my last slide is about what we as SETA are trying to do. I think this is still something new we are working on as SETA. So we're looking at what we call an ecosystem business model, right? So at SETA, we would like SETA to become a marketplace for government, whereby we partner with suppliers on the right-hand side and clients on the left-hand side. Clients will be government departments, public entities, and anybody who really needs to transact with government for whatever purpose. In terms of the partnerships, we want to make sure that we pre-contract with those partners so that when clients have to engage with those partners, all the regulatory components have been addressed proactively so that the engagement or the transaction is seamless across that. But also with those partners, we agree mechanisms to drive digital skills within the country. We leverage solutions that have already developed. So those solutions, some of the solutions that have not been pre-vetted will be tested and certified before they get moved on to the SETA marketplace. The other key issue is digital advisory and consulting. So what we mean by that is, if we have a marketplace that is existing, so somebody has to advise clients in terms of how the marketplace operates, how to choose solutions that exist on that particular marketplace, as well as how those solutions work or operate. This digital consulting and advisory will also assist government departments in the development of their strategies and their plans to make sure that everything is up to par, so that when those particular clients approach SETA or go to the marketplace, then they understand exactly their needs and how everything hangs together. The next one is around digital infrastructure. Here we want to make sure that we partner with all key infrastructure service providers, cloud service providers, telcos, any of those service providers to ensure that we can connect South Africa. We can make sure that the data of South Africans are stored in safe places. There will be different manners in which those particular, for instance, when we deal with data centers or cloud, we will approach them differently to ensure that the security cluster is treated based on their policies, procedures, and everything else. But the data will all reside in South Africa and nothing else. There's no compromise around that. There's been a cloud directive that came from the DPSA, and we are following that one as a basis for ensuring that data stays in South Africa, is processed in South Africa. And then, as I said, the last component of that is to ensure that there's people and skills development. And within this marketplace ecosystem model, we're going to leverage data and artificial intelligence capabilities. We have to make sure that everything across the board, end to end, is secure. So cybersecurity is critical. And we're going to make sure that there are clear standards and policies that people can have access to in order to understand how everything operates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mokgashwa. I think amongst the many things you do at SETA is putting together very strategic presentations and paving the path. Really excited to see that marketplace. But oh, was it done by Tutule? Okay. Well, at least you've given him credit, Mr. Tsenye. Thank you as well. If you're online, if you've joined us, thank you for this amazing presentation. Can we give him another round of applause? Thank you. Great. It's almost time for Q&A and tea. And between that is a presentation from my boss, Ms. Lerato Matawata, no pressure. You see how I strategically said tea and Q&A. And so Lerato is the director, public sector director at Microsoft. And the presentation will be on the private sector perspective, digitization of government processes, and harmonization of policy. Can we give her a nice warm round of applause as she comes up to deliver the presentation?
Thanks, Ray. I'm not sure if he was trying to say be very quick so that I can go, so I can go have my tea break. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm a ladies and gentlemen person. I think DDG did that introduction and welcome very well. If I try to replicate that greeting, I will go very wrong. I will not be able to get it right. But all protocol observed, and we really are glad to welcome you in our building and the partners that we have today, and all the guests in the room. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. As I was listening to the speakers, one of the things that came to mind was, surely the conversation is now about execution. My presentation is very similar to yours, DDG. It's very similar to yours, Ntutule or Mr. Mokgashwa, the two of you combined. And it had me thinking it is time for a different conversation, right? I will repeat, because that's what I prepared. But I think the challenge to all of us after this is, we know the case for digital transformation has been made, right? It's no longer a question of, is it a choice? Is it, is it something that we should be debating about it
is made. All these points were mentioned today, cost reduction, efficiencies and transparencies that we need to build into our systems. I think the two critical ones for me is data-driven decision-making. This, as a citizen of South Africa, not even as a Microsoft employee, this is what I would love to get as a service from my government. Somebody was saying government as a platform. I'm going to, I said I'm going to quote you on that. So when I think of government as a platform for me, I would like for public sector to know me and deal with me as a citizen in a data-driven way. So I think we need to really think about what we mean when we are delivering digital systems to our people. And then, of course, improved service delivery. As South Africans, we all live the experience of complaints about service delivery. And the question is, how do we enable government through technology to deliver the services that our citizens are looking for? And how do we partner with you as government to ensure that we live this mandate with you? So if I look at, and again, it has already been said, nothing new on the slide. But one of the things for me that stood out was actually a simple thing, 2025. At some point when we were spewing out these numbers, 2025 seemed like something in the future, right? It is not, it's 2 years from now. And we're saying that this is what citizens will be demanding of government and of us from a service delivery and digital platforms perspective. The point around how many, or ensuring equitable access to services, if you think about how many of us today interact with digital platforms on a daily basis, as we're sitting in this room, probably all of us are on 3 devices, 5 apps running at the same time, and that kind of thing. This is where the crux of citizen delivery, services delivery sits. We all want public sector to deliver services to us in a way that we are accustomed to living our lives. If I have 100 digital pings a day, I would love to be able to use those pings to get the service that I need out of public sector, right? If I am sitting on my TV doing YouTube, whatever, and then I have to quickly interact with City of Tshwane, I would love to just sit there on that same device and do what I need to do with City of Tshwane. This is what it's talking about, delivering services in the way that your citizens are working today. We speak about South Africa being a very young generation in terms of the age dynamics of South Africa, right? We speak about Africa being a young continent, so is Africa. It means that we have to think about how 2 years from now, 5 years from now, we have transformed ourselves to meet that youthfulness that we have in our society in terms of how we deliver services. Enabling the hybrid workforce, again, I will say, repeat. We know we've had this shift. We've had a shift around how we want to work. Some of us, as we were driving here, were sitting on calls, and we were trying to, I think I heard Ntutule himself was on a call, trying to interact with us, be here with us in a hybrid form, while still delivering the work that we need to do. This is not a public sector phenomenon, a private sector phenomenon. It's happening to public sector as well. So the question is, how do we enable public sector servants to be able to work in such a way that service delivery is still enhanced, whether people are in the office or not? It cannot be that the way public servants work, they're only at their optimal when they're in the office and not in a hybrid mode. And these are the things that we're looking to work with you to deliver. Or actually, these are the trends that the world is saying we've moved here. But again, we're working to partner with you to deliver that. We spoke about capacitating skills. This is a known problem. We working on program after program to drive skills development, and also to think about skills retention within public sector. If we're looking for government to be an attractive place in the future, with all this innovation that we're driving and the dreams that we have in terms of how public services will be delivered, somebody has to want to work for government, if I'm talking about retention space. And at this point, the reality is that we could debate that it seems like not such an attractive place to work for because we're not moving with the times, right? That is I just threw a challenge in there for us, DDG, in that how do we ensure that public sector is also a place where the skill sets of the country desire to work for to enable this this future state or future state that we're looking for. Of course, operational efficiency, I'm not going to go into that, but let's talk about cybersecurity and resilience. All of these things that we're talking about, and we spoke about being risk averse earlier. That could be from either funding or just changing systems and so forth. But if we do not handle the cyber security threats that are introduced by this new model that we preach about and that we aspire to, we will continue to be risk averse. All of these are underpinned by a very strong security posture that we need to think about and enable in how we deliver services. The interesting point here in terms of what's written is CIOs. One of your critical areas was perimeter. You're like a perimeter security specialist, right? So if we think about what the perimeter is today, it has changed. The perimeter used to be my offices. I make sure that I have firewalls and all of that, and everything that is inside that space is intact and protected. How do you protect me when I'm working from my car, when I'm working from malls, as we do these days? The number of people I see doing work calls at malls, right? So the perimeter has changed. So CIOs today have to deliver security to areas that they have not thought that are a security worry before. So cybersecurity resilience talks to being able to provide the security posture end-to-end in terms of how we are enabling that hybrid workforce. So again, it brings some of the interesting industry challenges that we see, right? We spoke about digital skilling, of course, the efficiencies and so forth. But let's think about data sharing and collaboration. If everything is locked up in the way we're working today, our systems are not interacting, there's no interoperability between government sectors, how are we going to enable that connected citizen experience if we do not have data sharing and collaboration? And it talks about thinking of how do you establish digital trust? And maybe again, it's underpinned by that cybersecurity posture. For us to remove or to be okay to walk away and do this and think that we don't have to be as risk averse as we are today. Establishing digital trust is very important. It means that we must have the right frameworks, the right policies that underpins how we drive the digital transformation message without worry of the risk factor that we bring into the organizations. And then, like I said, we're moving slightly to policy now. My topic talks about harmonizing policy. So if we think about that today, let's talk AI. We at Microsoft love AI right now. So if we think about the things that we are introducing into our markets, our communities, how we think people will be working in the future, do we have consistent clarity, let me call it that, around how we enable this? I think all of us here, if we were asked what is the government's policy on AI, and it's already happened to us, so this is not even a 2025 aspiration. It happened to us a while ago where AI is entrenched in what we do today, but we do not have clarity on what those policies that govern AI are. So it is very important that as we think about policy frameworks and how we harmonize that, we think about, yes, future technologies, but that these policies should also be enabling what we say we want to do. I think there was mention around, like the collaboration of stakeholders in terms of, weighing in on decision making. When we set policies, how often do we check in with the people that will be using those policies that they are actually enabling for what their digital transformation goals are? As private sector, one of the things that we do sit in is we listen to these policies, we want to work, we want to partner, and the policy itself becomes a blocker. It means that the way it was thought of was not enabling of the digital goal, and it's not harmonized, right, to what we're trying to do. So as we're thinking about how we're going to adapt to the change and move forward with the digital goals, harmonizing the policies, the frameworks becomes very, very important. And what does digital government look like when we think about this? Again, we spoke of the aspirations, and then just to touch on a few things that we really do desire to see in public and service delivery. Automation of court systems, wouldn't that be interesting? I think if any of you have been through the justice system, you would know how painful it could be. I've had my file lost like 10 times and I had to go there myself to say, where is the file? Like we have an aspiration of a digital government that talks to the interoperability of all of these services, from a smart city to how laws are, or how justice is provided to the citizens, to social services and all of that. And we want to partner with you to deliver this. However, for us to do this, we have to invest in technology. We have to think about how our policy set for this amount of collaboration to happen. We require cross-agency collaboration platforms, right? If we are still treating or working with each other as silos, then the quest that we're seeking for seems a little bit far. So we also have this dream for public sector, and I'm going to talk to you now in terms of how Microsoft does provide this and how we want to partner with you in providing this picture. But I guess the point is we're all on the same page. We all have the same goals. How do we then start executing towards this? So if I think of, as Microsoft, what and how we're posturing ourselves to partner with government, and I'll start here again in terms of the security piece, and Tate Mahasho spoke about ensuring that government data is safe and secured. That is certainly one area that we have ensured that we fortify in how we deliver services to our government customers. So we have security built into how we deliver services, and the critical platforms and all the services that you get to enjoy as government are already, secure. The trust, the policies around security are built in that. The level of compliance that is built in that is, close to none. The question is, are we familiarizing ourselves with how this does enable public sector? We still get questions today around, the security of the platform, the security of cloud, and never mind cloud, we have a hybrid model, but even the security of that hybrid model that we offer. And the question is, there is a need, and perhaps in that skilling effort that we must drive, for us to help you understand how our security or how our platforms have security built on. And then delivering of innovative programs and experiences. We spoke about skilling. There's a lot that we do around skilling. If you think about the partnership that we driving with CETA, partnership that we drive with provinces, our government framework itself, there is a lot. Before we even get to the technology innovation itself that we drive to public sector, there's a lot of innovative programs that we can work on together. And that is how we seek to work with you, and we want to engage with you on those programs. So let's put our heads together and see how we drive that. I'm not going to talk about the other two. Those are the core pillars of what we're doing, right? Enabling government workforce and building operational efficiencies. So as Microsoft, if you're not aware yet, I'm just going to talk about the investments that we have made. We do have local data centers. This talks to that, the local data remaining in the country that you were talking about. We do have local data centers that we have invested heavily in. So when we think about infrastructure modernization, which was spoken about in all the other presentations, again, with cost efficiencies in mind, why must there be a repetition of investment that has already been made into the country? And for that matter, we have ensured that services are run locally. So you can see that we have the typical O365, D3, all the services that public sector is looking for today are hosted locally, right? There is no reason for a worry around where your services lie. And we do provide the security, the privacy, the compliance, and the transparency that you need to utilize the services without any trepidation. Okay, so this is just to indicate to you the investment that we have made to deliver on the quest that I've heard being spoken prior to me taking stage. And then some of the things, okay, I was ahead of myself, I guess. I spoke about the fact that we have compliance built into how we deliver services. Data residency, right? That is something that we asked about all the time. So our local data centers are geared for that requirement that you have for data residency. And of course, the performance has to be taken into consideration. This is not basic infrastructure. These are hyperscalers. And for what you're looking to do, the efficiencies that public sector is looking to build, you need that type of infrastructure where it is a hyperscaler, it is efficient, it is absolutely like a powerful machine that we've already invested in, and it is up to you to take advantage of. Now, one of the things that we pride ourselves here, and I think it was also on the last slide, is our availability, right, in these services, where we have a 99.95 availability SLA for public sector. And or for anybody in our data center, for that matter. That is important when we think about where the times we are in. We have more requirement today because of that uptime, because we have load shedding, because we have some challenges in the country where even if you ran the most effective data center, to keep it up, even with load shedding challenges, has become some really costly exercise. And this has become a very interesting business case in itself. And then some of the work that, and it sounded like a huge Microsoft spiel there, but I stand with confidence because we did the work with public sector itself to ensure that the services that we're offering are credible to you. So we have walked the journey with DPSA to ensure that what we're offering meets the policy requirements of our public sector customers. We have contributed to the Cyber Crimes Act in order to verify that as I stand here and I say our security posture is that good. we have vetted it against what public sector requires. So this is just to indicate to you that we have taken a concerted effort to ensure that what we're offering to you, public sector, through DPSA, SSA, and CETA, all the partnerships that we have created, have actually vetted the system, and we sit here in that confidence. So there is no reason for the question around, is it a viable way to go? It is now a matter of choice. It's now a matter of, do we actually want to take action, or still sit, and 2025 will find us here. And then my last slide is really just, again, around indicating the policies and the global frameworks that we adhere to in our data center, and to just indicate to you that when we say that we have crossed all the, crossed all the T's and dotted the I's, that all these standards are adhered to in the services that we offer. So we have indeed harmonized policies and frameworks in how we deliver services to you. And I'm going to pause there and say thank you. But I will leave again with the challenge that I started with. We can still be talking about the case for digital transformation. It has been stated. If I went to my friend ChatGPT today and asked, I think we will all get that same message that we shared. It is sitting there. It is there. It is like, it's known. So if we know that the case is made, then why are we still, one can claim we're sitting on our laurels. So I think it's time, it's really time for action. And I hope that challenge spurs us into action. But the good thing is that we stand here willing to partner with every one of you in ensuring that we meet those digital transformation goals. Thank you. So it is tea time.
Thank you very much, Lerato. It's almost time for, before we go to tea, thank you. Before we go to, we've got Q&A for about 10 minutes. We've had probably around 3 speakers from Vino, from the DDG. Okay, so it's 4 speakers, including Lerato. And I'm sure there would be 1 or 2 questions from the floor. We want to just open up this time for 10 minutes of question, Q&A. I've got a roving mic, so if you can just indicate by raising your hand if you do have a question. I'll bring you the mic for any of those participants. Those chairs are not for them to come and sit at the front so you can interrogate them. No, that's for something else later. So if there are any questions, 10 minutes. There's one at the back and one at the front. I think I'll maybe take 4 and we'll do the rest later.
Thanks. Afternoon. Thanks for the presentations and the presenters. It's Rod Gruen, Northern Cape, Department of Economic Development and Tourism. Maybe Vino and DG could possibly give us some ideas about the sustainability of the delivery of the services, because we put a lot of effort into acquiring the services, but it's down the road in sustaining those services that we're beginning to run into a few challenges. Maybe just some of your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll take that question and 2 more, and we'll get the responses all at once. The second one, ma'am. No, you don't have to.
Thank you. Sanelisiwe Keswa, CIO with Gauteng Department. I was unhappy with you not counting education in your slide for innovation. So yeah, I take offense there. Secondly, my question is to CETA. If I look at CETA's mandate, and maybe this is, you'll just pardon my ignorance, I'm just worried that the presentation from CETA and the Department of, from the DDG, sorry, communication and digital technologies, for me, it's not giving direction. I'm just worried that we're sitting here and perhaps as provinces and departments, we are looking at that direction that says that how do we move forward and where do we move to? How do we collaborate in terms of perhaps starting at documenting a citizen and having integration between health and DHA at the time of birth, so that once the child is going to start education, I know that in 5 years' time, in the previous 5 years, how many kids were born in South Africa and where are they, so that I can be able to then plan and say, I need to go and build schools in these particular areas because I know that there's so many kids who were born. So I'm just worried that this conversation for me becomes a talk shop. Unless maybe there's something that I'm missing, maybe you need to come with those strategies so that we can have visibility and see how we can tap onto those. Because now we're currently building our own little solutions wherever we are, and we're really wasting the taxpayers' money. We're wasting our money as well, unless we get a proper direction from the powers that be. Even if they would come and say, let's just start in one department and ensure that in that particular department, we don't have pockets of data. So also, if you look at the infrastructure, I think the mandate sits either between the two holders, where you could go and say to all the service providers of infrastructure, say, you start this side, you connect, you ensure that there is connectivity. Currently, I'm even trying to connect schools within Gauteng. I'm not winning because there isn't one a strategy from us as government. So yeah, I'm just worried if we can get that kind of direction or be included in building that kind of direction. We're willing to actually build that kind of direction. Thanks.
Thank you so much. There's just 2 more questions. I think we'll take them at the second round. Sorry about that. I think there's one more there. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Piers Koenraad, CPSI. Just a quick observation and then a longish question. My daughter of 25, and there I revealed my age, just quit her, just quit her job. Her last day is, I think, tomorrow or the day after. And the reason being, the company she works for wants them to come back to the office. So typical 20-year-old. And she moved on to another job, which is based in Singapore and South Africa, and it's fully remote. So I think as government, we need to come to that realization in terms of what the youth is or what they want and what their needs are. My question is around digital identity. And the background to this is that in April last year, DPSA, ourselves, and WIT started a digital conversation with Denmark, who's at the top of the e-government survey. And many of those here were part of that conversation. And of about 20 factors, like cybersecurity, data connectivity, we boiled it down to 3 conversation points. Trust, inclusivity, and ethics is the one, and I've heard that today, over and over. The second one is digital identity as an access to single access and verification for online transaction. And the third one is legislative review. And Z83, I think, is to me the proxy of all 3 coming together. And every time I hear Z83, my question is, how far are we with those 3 issues? And my question, therefore, and I'll pick on the DDG, who started issues around digital identity as an entry point. Because if we don't get those 3 correct, none of this that we are talking about is going to matter. Not broadband connectivity, nothing. So my question is, where are we with those, and how can we speed up that to do it in an agile way? So getting our trust inclusivity right, digital identity right, and then our review of legislation to identify those barriers that Sita mentioned. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We'll start off with the DDG, and then we'll move to Mr. Mahasha. And then I'll take 3 more questions, then we'll go to break.
No, thanks, Program Director. I think let me start on the one from CPSI in terms of digital ID. I think, colleagues, we have to understand that this is one area that we want to focus on as well from our side. I think Trevin would have been online here on this platform. We were together in India 2 weeks ago, where we've seen how India have done the digital ID. And as part of, our BRICS engagement and, G20, we are trying to leverage on that work, because this is the area that we feel that is very critical for our government. But remember that the ID system as it is now stays at Home Affairs. So is that collaboration between us and Home Affairs to see how then we can use, the ID that they've got, the 10-digit system that they've got, and making it a digital ID, because I think we have to start on that fundamental. But that is the work that we're going to be doing up here. So at least rest assured we are looking on that one. And then to come to the question of from Gauteng, the idea of the e-government portal, if we can do it right, I think Lucas will back me up on that one here. But remember, one of the fundamental things to get it right is to integrate the backend systems. As it is now, this is the work that we're trying to do with CETA to see, because if now you can have, Home Affairs talking to social development, talking to all the other departments, then if then the entry into the e-government portal is your ID, so your ID should be able to search, all the databases in government, and then you can come back and say that this is this particular citizen, is this citizen alive? So you can go to Home Affairs, all those things. So that is the idea behind the e-government, so that e-services. But we will work, in terms of integrating all these services, because as it is now, they are still disparate, working in silos. But that is the work that we're currently doing. But also, Lucas, maybe you can add on that one, because if probably we can start, moving some of these into the government cloud ecosystem. But if the ones that we can't move probably have the API, so that at least these databases can talk to each other. I think that's the work that we are going to be doing as well. CETA can add more on that. And then the last one, in terms of sustainability, that's a very challenging one. We have been developing some of the solutions as a state. If you have to even look on infrastructure like your SA Connect and then all those services, and even our USASA, in terms of service obligations, that they go to the schools and put connectivity, and then after 2 years they said, DBE, can you take over? So one of the things that we are trying to see if we can get right, probably on the new administration, it is to say that probably on the critical, ICT initiatives of the state, let's have a consolidated funding sitting on one place, that we know that whenever we develop a solution, we can sustain it on a longer term. Because for me, even if you were to look on SA Connect in its current form, if now, for instance, you say that you outlay capital infrastructure, you connect a school or you connect a community and all that, we need to be able to sustain that for a longer period of time. Because if now we say that, okay, we'll put the infrastructure, then DBE take over, DBE will going to come and say that we do have other challenges that we're facing. For us, the connectivity is not like a major issue. So then, which means that we need to have like a consolidated funding for the ICT initiatives. I think I'm going to end there, Chair. Thanks.
The 3 questions that side, we're going to take them after Mr. Mahasha's response, and then we'll go to T.
Thank you. Let me go back to the issue of digital ID. So, incidentally, we have a meeting with Home Affairs tomorrow, so I don't know what will come out of there. But the most important thing that DDG mentioned is that in terms of having access to data across different departments and systems, the current issue we have now is we are not allowed to access the data. We have to get MOU signed, and then it takes years, and then but we are addressing that. So there's And now there's an interministerial committee that has been formed. I know there's a meeting set up for Friday. I don't know if it's going to take place, but that is one area where we're going to use it as a basis for ensuring that there's collaboration amongst the departments so that we can come up with priorities on how we can digitalize the whole of government. You mentioned the issue of cradle to grave, right? So when somebody's born, you need to understand everything else and make sure that we can prepare them for school and for work and so forth. So those are some of the things we have plans around those things, but the key is some of the things we cannot just do, right? So we need to collaborate as departments, work with the DPSA, the DCDT, and all the other provinces to make sure that together we can craft these things, prioritize these things, and do it incrementally. You can't do everything all together. But while in the process of doing it, leverage what other people have done and reuse what can be applicable to South Africa in that particular purpose. So the digital ID issue, for instance, there's a lot of countries that have done it, right? Some countries have offered us solutions for free, right? But some of those solutions are not politically correct, if I can call it that, because then there's political clashes between the countries and South Africa in terms of affiliations. I don't know. I don't get involved in politics. I just said I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to give it to the board. So I don't talk about those. But solutions exist. If we collaborate, anything is possible. That one I can tell you. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. There's the 3 questions. Vino, I see you, but we're going to have to do yours after the tea break. There's 1 here, and then 2 over there, and 3 over here. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Lanley Simpson from the Department of Science and Innovation. I just want to comment firstly on the 2 colleagues from Gauteng Education, I think is absolutely correct, and the colleague from the CPSI. The department has a program which is called the Foundational Digital Capabilities Research Program with the CSIR. And within that, we have 6 domains: artificial intelligence, cybernetics and robotics, mixed reality systems and digital twinning, Internet of Things, cloud to edge and networking, modeling and simulation, cybersecurity and blockchain, and quantum computing, the last one. The issue on identity is absolutely crucial. And what that identity is not a digital identity. It is a self-sovereign digital identity. No country has yet got such a thing. And there are solutions of people trying to get towards it, but you've got to get the mechanism around which you actually build that, as well as all the security layers connected to what that self-sovereign layer has to be. That enables you to actually get to the levels of the services that my colleague from education is about. Because the key thing about all of this is who owns the data. It's not so much about whether or not you comply with POPI, because POPI Act does not talk about data ownership or who actually mines the data or aggregated data that actually comes from these systems. This is actually the crucial point, because the ownership, in other words, the spiel we've had today connects to the people who are the lords of the manor. Microsoft is one of the lords of the manor. The other is Apple. The other one's Google. Then there's Amazon. They all have the mechanisms to control the way the systems of the world are starting to emerge and create new forms of stratification within society. How do we deal with those things in terms of building a society that is inclusive and contributes to real development? So South Africa doesn't actually have an IT industry. We have a telco industry. We have all our telecoms and we have Naspers. So the key question becomes, what do we actually require to build a proper digital industry that includes all the maintenance, the service level agreements that actually build and maintain these systems? It's the back-end systems. It's all the infrastructure, the back-end systems that build up in order to get to the service layers. And that's the important part, because that's what we have to build, because no company is going to build that for us. And that's the issue that we have to find how we get the direction. And I'm saying that, so our department, together with DCDT, we have various links trying to actually formulate this and deal with how this stuff starts to emerge. And hopefully the FOSAD structure will actually take a decision on this and eventually cabinet. But this is actually quite crucial stuff.
Thank you. We do have a response to the sustainability question. I'll pass the mic to Vino shortly when we've taken the other two questions. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Tandile Stirman from DPSA. For me, it's a comment. I think all of us in this room, we agree that we need to move, and we have been having these conversations, but it looks like we come back and say the same thing. So one of the things that we identified in one of the presentations was silos. And this goes to the fact that government does not have a digital transformation strategy, and where the strategy is going to the department's strategies. Instead of, so we are duplicating efforts because I concentrate on things that I'm not mandated to do as a DPSA, instead of focusing on what I'm supposed to do as DPSA. But if we had that strategy, that is we don't have an IT strategy, but we have a departmental strategy. And secondly, with Microsoft, I think Lerato, you said you normally get questions about people not understanding. So I think one of the things that Microsoft you also need to focus on is just education in terms of licensing models that we have, because there are different features. So when you present like everything is included, but we have different features, and someone might now come and say, I want that tool, but it's not on what the department has contracted on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys are making my life easy because you're not asking questions, but giving comments. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. All right. Are you doing? I hope it's a comment, not a question. No pressure. This is the last one. Then we're moving to T.
Thank you for that. At the beginning, it was a long-winded question, but Mr. Mkhashwa touched on a response partially. The key concern that I had was that coming from SETA, he had a lot of questions of why are we not leveraging on telecom? Why are we not doing this? Why do we have silos and all of that? And it becomes worrisome if the leading agency in terms of technology says, why are we not? Because we already know who we can leverage on. There's Telkom, there's Sunrun in terms of the network infrastructure. And SETA itself has a dashboard that goes across South Africa as a whole. That shows the systems that are in place, where we can leverage, what's in duplication. To me, that says they stand a better chance of dealing with the silos than I do from where I'm sitting. Because he had made mention of the DG's forum, and in his later response on that question mentioned an interministerial committee. You see, he has all the information, all the tools at his disposal, or SETA has all the tools at their disposal to work around these silos. Now, because all of what we have mentioned, we're all in the same boat, we all have the same understanding, we all know that the silos have to go in order for us to be interoperable. Now, what I feel needs to happen is that it goes back to SETA to say what is needed is you need to identify where to start in terms of killing these silos, silo mentality, and doing away with duplication, and say, this is a plan of action, table it at the DG's forum or at the interministerial committee, and say, in order for us to achieve what we hope to achieve, first step is this. So those recommendations have to be tabled by the leading organization in terms of technology to the platforms that they have at their disposal to say, this is the plan from the leading agents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please pass the mic. I like how these a discussion, Mr. Ramusi noted after the tea break. So please note them down, Mr. Mahasha, Ms. Matabata, and of course TDG Mlindi. So now we're going to get a response to the sustainability question. Okay.
Great, thanks for the. So I'm just going to respond to the gentleman's question on how do we ensure that the applications and services that we build are sustainable. And what I take out of the question you're asking, how do we also ensure that they have longevity and they're future-proof, if that's a word. So there's a couple of points that we in the business that we are in kind of look at as well. The first one is, when you build, the first thing is build these applications and services with the user experience and the user journey in mind. Because if we build a solution that just delivers feature set but not with the user journey and the user experience in mind, it becomes sometimes difficult for the user to use and they fall off. So engagement falls off. So both with the user journey and user experience in mind. The other one is when you build, especially in today's world, build with security in mind. Security, we're talking about security at the data level, security at the application level, security at the device level, security at the network connectivity level. So it's going to be appropriate based on the application or service that you're doing, but you have to take those considerations. Sometimes if you over spec on your security approach, then it's all risk dependent, right? And your cost might just go up. So there's something else to do, but you also have to. But the key thing is apply your mind with a holistic security approach. The third point is build to scale. And we all know not long ago when there was a application developed for people to sign up kids for school, and it crashed because of it just couldn't handle the volume. So when we build applications to be future-proof, build them with the sort of scale. Now there's ways to do it. You could go cloud, hybrid cloud. I'm not dictating what type of architecture you use, but the point is that to ensure that these applications remain relevant is that you got to build in a manner that with the mindset that it can scale, and that how do you accommodate scale. So we talk about the scale approach. And the last is, when you build applications and services, build in to ensure that they're built on open protocols, not on proprietary protocols. And we find in many cases, it's not so prevalent now, but when you start building on proprietary protocols, you get stuck in vendor lock-ins, and it limits your capacity and capability to innovate. When I say innovate, using the best of breed players out there that can innovate for you, because you're stuck on a single type of protocol vendor environment. So those are just some of the points I would use to respond to your question, and I ensure that applications are future-proof and have longevity going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vino. We pressed for time because we've still got quite a busy program. Can we take 10 minutes for tea? I know it was initially scheduled for a little bit longer. 10 minutes so that we're back here at exactly 4 o'clock. I think we will continue at 4 with a sort of a working tea break with the next presentation. So at 4 o'clock, please come into the room with your tea and coffee. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you shortly. Can we just request everybody that hasn't signed the register, please sign the register outside if you haven't done so. Thank you so much. Can we welcome them to the stage with a nice warm round of applause? Thank you so much. Yes, here's the clicker.
All good things clicking. Right, so apparently I need another mic, eh? Or must
Should I? No, I've got one for you. This one's mine. No, this one's mine.
Perfect.
Okay, just need to turn it on. No, not yet.
1, 2, there we go, perfect. I feel like MC Hammer, huh? Yeah, afternoon. I can beatbox, but apparently my kids say I'm really useless at it, so there we go. Hi, my name is Dave Ives. I'm a partner at PwC. I look after our Microsoft Alliance, and I also look after a number of other areas, our data analytics practice, so all the work that we're doing with a number of our customers on transforming their data landscape. I have a long history in the ICT community inside of in SA. I used to own a large system integrator, which we sold into the Ultron Group under Mr. Mteto Nyati. And I honestly believe that skills and skills development is a huge opportunity for us in South Africa. I also have another challenge is I love the work that's happening inside of GPT. I'm using GPT-4. I'm a code interpreter kind of guy. I write Python script for fun. So yeah, I've also got a bit of a passion around it. I have a background in Azure Data Lake, Azure Databricks, Cosmos DB. So yeah, that's a bit of my background. Not normal from somebody from PwC, right? Normally they're just reconciling your GL and giving you audit findings. But the team here is myself and Wandile. We're more from the tech side. We love tech. We breathe and eat tech every single day. And I think it's a big challenge for us. So more of a public, if I think of the private sector, it's facing the same challenges that a lot of the public sector teams are facing, maybe in a different sphere, different aspect. If you want to take advantage of the cloud and the investments that the hyperscalers are making, you have to make the shift in the private sector. And trust me, there's still private sector customers still using COBOL, ProgressDB, Natural Adabus. They also have to shift as well. This pivot is really, really difficult for them, and setting themselves up for the future opportunities around what the hyperscalers are doing is a real challenge for them. And worldwide, we see that the ability to make that shift is more and more difficult because they need to understand where do we take advantage of all the new services that are coming from the likes of Microsoft, AWS, GCP going forward. So for us, the migration, is it a migration? Is it a refactoring? Is it a rebuild? What do you do? Becomes a very important part of your planning. So like an Alice in Wonderland says, if you don't have a strategy, any direction will do. You can't just go into the cloud without any thought and strategy and strategic planning. And we spend quite a lot of our time with our customers in planning their strategic journey and their cloud migration strategy, combined with the most important thing, which Wandile is going to talk to today, around cyber. So when we think about it, I'm a big fan of DevOps, DevSecOps, building those environments out. I look at a lot of my customers that are going in the space. So infrastructure as code, continuous integration, continuous development, IT agility is a massive, massive factor. Internally, just on IT agility alone, we just by using Codex and GitHub, we're getting more than 50% productivity just on beta versions for our developers building code for our customers right now. So we're just seeing this as a multiplier effect and the ability to bridge the digital capability set that we're seeing inside of our business. We're training internally using our bots and our co-pilots. It's a very, very important aspect in this space. And for our customers in the private sector, they're thinking deeply about enhancing their productivity, IT agility, DevOps as a method. And all this infrastructure capability sits inside of, and the latest technology, whether you like it or not, is invested in from a cloud perspective. So to take advantage and the benefits go. You develop solutions for your stakeholders and your customers are becoming critical. A lot of the banks that we're working with have the same challenges in microservices, splitting out their product engines. Fintechs are enhancing digital capability faster than the banks are. They want to take advantage of it. So they're having to make massive challenges and changes in their IT infrastructure. We talk about reduced cost. Typically, what we have with a lot of our customers in the private sector moving to their cloud is you get a spike in the cost base, but over time, we look at what's called a value delayering exercise and look at IT cost optimization. So that has to be part of your strategy, right? If you're making the changes, you have to start thinking about what are you going to put in as a container as a service, Kubernetes, scaling. You have to build with the capability sets in mind. And a lot of our customers are thinking about that as they make these shifts. So really important from a technical perspective. We're going to talk about skills later. If you think about the skills, massive, massive challenges. So I think about some of these things that we're thinking about, looking at some of our customers are seeing massive savings over the longer term in terms of their cost reductions. But this goes across their complete landscape. So you can't take one service. You've got to take your multitude of services and your capability sets that you're looking at. So we're seeing, upwards of 50% cost savings in the longer term in terms of the capabilities from moving to the cloud and better cost infrastructure basis. The biggest move is not necessarily in the cost reduction, it's in delivering better services. For example, you do need to have a lot more digitization. So for example, little simple technologies like OCR recognition type technologies, what's happening with these new types of new capabilities means that I can ingest data very, very quickly. I can synchronize it with my backend systems. I can optimize my digitization processes. And I can do this very, very quickly with the types of services. That service might need 20, 30, 40 type people touching that document, where I can have one bot in gestation and be able to do that in a very, very quick return. So those sort of thinking is really coming in, and we're seeing that happening. I think many of you have probably interacted with a chatbot in some shape or form when you've interacted with your bank or any other service in the industry. It might frustrate you, but it's getting better and better. Even a cross-border letter will be automatically initiated and sent to you along with your back-end insurance policy process, automatically instrumented. Those types of services are not just pie in the sky, they're real today and happening more and more as we go forward. What we're also seeing is that for us, a big important factor is that if we don't make the shift, you're going to lose your skills. So from the South African perspective, our skills portability is a big, big challenge. We're actually quite innovative as a country, maybe not as innovative as we'd like to be, but I think for us as an organization and many private sector customers realize that if they don't provide these types of capability sets internally, they're going to lose their skills as well. We're seeing a massive pivot to agile, DevOps, and instrumenting and improving that whole process. We'll talk a bit about that in terms of the cloud adoption framework and architecture framework. Wandile will talk a bit about that as well. But these are the frameworks that we're putting together for a lot of our customers in terms of helping them pivot to the cloud model. So I think it's a big challenge. And I think that we don't just, it's easy to throw stones and say, oh, government sector is not pivoting. Private sector is having some of the major challenges in terms of also pivoting to this massive hyperscaler technology sets. You can't just take a whole IT organization and just flip them overnight. It doesn't work like that. It takes time. It takes a well-architected, deliberate strategy, and it needs to be very, very carefully calculated. So I can talk to customers. I've been the chief digital officer for an agrochemicals business, from a financial services business. And I can tell you quite confidently, they also take time. And they also take time in their thinking and their strategy, but they do have a strategy. They're very deliberate about it. And a lot of IT executives are actually very much in pace with the business executives. Had a conversation with the business executive the other day that was probably more articulate around Gen AI and the opportunity in his business than the IT team. It's happening fast, and we have to start really being able to pace with business. Our kids are going to be better suited around the ChatGPT AI Copilot model. If you haven't watched Sal Khan talk about the things that they're doing on Khan Academy, go and have a look on the TED Talk. Very, very exciting in the education sector. I heard a comment on that earlier. And that's the Copilots they're building on Khan Academy. And this is very exciting technology sets that are coming from an instructor and teacher-led capability sets. So definitely a huge opportunity for us. We see that. I really want to focus on, for us, what have we been doing for our customers? We're helping them think about their big data and AI and landscape opportunities. For every rand that gets spent on Gen AI, we probably need to spend another rand on guardrails and ethical AI. We need to be very, very careful about this. We didn't air gap this. The industry kind of started when Reid Hoffman and Musk and the team got together and created OpenAI. It was not just created in a lab, but it already connected to the billions and billions of signals out in the market, and it's happening whether we like it or not. It's not a lab. In fact, we are the lab. And that is a big challenge for us today. So when we think about these types of technologies, we've got to think about how we bring them into our environment in a very, very secure way, how we prevent the massive data capability challenges that are an opportunity. If you've ever used the enhanced data capability, it's like having a data analyst in your pocket. Upload a spreadsheet, it'll tell you about the spreadsheet, it will create a data set for you, it'll write the Python code for you. In fact, it'll start combining data sets for you. Very, very exciting, but you've got to be very careful about how you bring this technology into your business. And then at the same time, thinking about what is our plan to bring in our well-secure, well-architectured frameworks. And on that point, I really want to just hand over to Wandile to maybe take you through a little bit more of a detail around cyber and security. In fact, it was mentioned 27,001 times, because that's the ISO certification. So there's a good opportunity for Wandile just to take you through cyber and security and our perspective on that in the market perspective.
Thanks, Dave. I think my job is done today, because everybody spoke about cyber. I was actually excited. I haven't been in a room where cyber has actually been mentioned more than 10 times. And it's great to hear that. We've been saying the sky is falling as security professionals. The sky has fallen already. So I wanted to speak to you about digital transformation. And digital transformation is underpinned by introduction of technology. Introduce technology, you introduce vulnerability, which means there's going to be threats. Somebody out there is looking to take advantage of what you have. And with cybersecurity, it's no longer a case of if, but when. We've seen breaches. I'll show some stats on the cost of data breaches. What we actually tell our clients nowadays is assume a breach. Go and find indicators of compromise. Better to respond, or better be prepared to respond and to recover, as opposed to assuming you will not get breached. We hear a lot of clients say it's not going to happen to us. It will happen. What have I done now? So the way we look at cyber and the threat actors that are out there, there's about 4 groupings. We have nation states. Nation states actually hack other nation states to find information and understand what plans they have. We have terrorists that also use computers. They too are looking at taking advantage of or intruding into a client's environment. Then we have organized crime and criminals, which is quite the biggest threats that we have. And then we have people that just want to demonstrate or just to be known for notoriety. I was able to break into somebody's company, and that's all they want to do. But the biggest threat we have is insiders. They have knowledge of our systems, know the procedures, what controls are in place, and how do we hack them? They obviously have different motives. Financial gain, personal revenge sometimes, and everybody's a target, from your smallest client to your biggest corporate. And the impacts are quite significant. If you look at in South Africa, it was funny, a colleague of mine was saying, the information regulator was actually fined her bosses, the Department of Justice, because they hadn't updated an antivirus software, which we found quite funny, So the cost of data breaches is quite high. And this is based on single incidents, right? South Africa last year was at number 10. The cost has actually gone down. And the cost is twofold, from detecting and responding to the breach, and then there's obviously post-breach costs that you need to cater for. Notifying data subjects about what has happened to their data. Dis-Chem was in the news recently because of a third party. And normally what happens now is the break-in is actually through a third party and not necessarily. They target your third parties, the people that have access to your environment, the people that you share data with, the people that provide services to you. And if you don't do anything about your third parties, chances are they are the entry point to what will happen. There was an incident, and this was funny a couple of years ago. The National Security Agency in the USA, because they also hack other nations, the very same tools that they use to hack other people were actually stolen. Now imagine, you think that the NSA would have the stringent of security in place, but they too suffer. It just goes to show that everybody is at risk of a hack. It's when it's going to happen. And I wanted to speak to, the time it actually takes to recover from an incident. I mean, 277 days is the time to identify as well as contain the breach. That's 9 months. I had a client in the healthcare sector a couple of years ago that got breached. Their email system was down for 4 months. Imagine being without a communications system. It takes about 7 months to actually detect that there's been a breach, and just a little over 2 months to actually contain. It's a very long time. 9 months is a long time to be without systems. And hackers, what they do now is not only to gain notoriety, it's disruption. Take you out, and you have no systems available to actually do anything. In the United States, there's a company called Colonial Pipeline Systems. I mean, we've got critical infrastructure in South Africa as well. I mean, I'll mention Transnet. They were out for a few weeks because of their systems were taken down by ransomware. If you're not prepared and you don't have the right processes in place to recover, it'll take much longer to actually do that. So when everybody was saying security, security, I was just, smiling and saying, finally, people get it. Security is very critical. And it shouldn't be seen as an afterthought. We must embed security from the get-go when we look at any digital transformation project. If you don't do it, it becomes more costly to actually build security if you haven't started from the get-go. So how do you build security? I mean, it's the application of technologies, processes, and practices. Some of us security professionals used to think if you really want to have security, disconnect all your systems from the network. But that's not going to help, because you need to be able to do and operate. But we actually think we should transform from cybersecurity to cyber resilience. And that means anticipate that something is going to happen. Have the ability to detect. Prevention is no longer the case. You can't prevent system breaches. You have to be able to detect. And then build enough resilience to withstand an attack, that even if you are still under an attack, you're still able to operate. And why we say transform from cybersecurity to resilience. Recovery is a key capability that all companies must have. You saw the stats, over 2 months to recover from. We need to shorten that time to recover. And then finally, attackers are also evolving. There are tactics, techniques, and methods. Similarly, as defenders, we need to do the same. We need to keep evolving as well, putting in new technologies. We see a lot of clients using old legacy security technology that does not necessarily cover the gaps that they're creating. And you need to look at it holistically. Somebody mentioned end-to-end, and our view is you've got to look at it end-to-end, from strategy to implementation and management, and then governance as well. So we have a framework at looking at how to set up cybersecurity capabilities to provide the resilience that's required. And then in the interest of time, it would be remiss of me not to speak about our partnership with Microsoft, where we help our clients, migrate to the cloud. When you migrate to the cloud, you should do it securely. When you are in the cloud, you still need to operate securely in the cloud. So there's a range of services that we offer. Dave spoke around the cloud, well-architected framework and the cloud adoption framework. All these things, when you move to the cloud. In fact, I had one of my telco clients. The security team said, we are not moving to the cloud until we have security in place. But the thing is now, people understand security is important. They used to call security people the police. We always say no, 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 no. But people now understand that security is important. And that's my last slide.
Thank you so much. Whoa. Thank you so much, Wandile. Thank you, Dave, for that presentation. We'll take the questions later. Thank you so much for that presentation. Our next presentation is from Ms. Lydia Sebukedi, Acting Executive Director at the CPSI, the Center for Public Sector Innovation. Can we welcome ma'am with a nice warm round of applause? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hey, my presentation is going to be very, very short because all of them, except for the last one, which was very technical, took all my slides. I'm like, how, Lucas? Did you see my presentation? And yeah, Lerato touched on a few things. Which one is this one? Okay. That's me before I stopped using the dye, the hair dye. I made peace with the gray hair. Thank you so much to the organizers of the event. All protocol observed. That's what we say in public service, if you want to be safe and not miss one person. My presentation is going to be very, very short. I come from CPSI, so as is norm in the private sector, they always do that, marketing, a little bit of selling their organizations. The CPSI is an organization within government. Yeah, it shows the silos that we work in. It's another entity set up by the Minister for Public Service and Administration with a mandate, a very hard mandate, I must say, to inculcate the culture and practice of innovation in the public sector. A very small organization of not even 40 people with a budget of about 46 million to carry this huge mandate. So that's where I'm coming from. But I wanted to use the presentation just to share, how we do our work with the little budget that we have. And so for this is just our approach. Focus areas, we do research and development, a little bit not empirical research, but just to understand what causes these problems, service delivery challenges that we have. A lot of testing and piloting, so we are a sandbox for frustrated innovators in the public service. You'll be amazed by how many of them would say, since I came to the CPSI, I go home, then they recognized me, a lot of them. Partnerships, obviously, we strive in terms of partnerships. You can't innovate without collaboration. We do incubate a bit, testing and piloting. We do unearthing and rewarding, because I want to assure you, there are innovative public servants out there. Not all of us are lazy. And we use some of our programs to make sure that we profile these innovators that are doing what they can. And obviously, innovation, you also have to share knowledge to avoid the reinventing of the proverbial wheel. But I want to share some of the examples and preface why I share this to say public servants are frustrated out there, very frustrated. There was a case in Northwest recently when nurses that were working in a maternal ward decided to put babies in boxes because there were no cribs. And I said to people, yes, there was bad publicity around that. But what were they supposed to do? Were they supposed to just leave the babies as they are, or to find a way of improvising and innovating around it? They did what they could. Then, how long does it take to procure a crib in the public service? 3 quotations, then you don't get, they say an RFQ is non-responsive. Those are our words. You have to run it again before you deviate because you are afraid of the rules that say, so why did you deviate? You know, those are the frustrations. So these are some of the projects that public servants come and knock at our door to say, I have this idea. Can you support me? Let's play around and see if this thing will work. Pierre and his team are working with Gauteng EMS. They want to come up with an e-hailing system. We're supporting them. We even hired system developers to help them develop that solution. But the question is, where does it go after that? Must I knock at CETA, take that idea and put it at CETA and let CETA charge the rest of the departments that want to use it? It's a question. I'm not saying, Lucas, you must answer. But those, those are the realities. There's the solution. It will work. Maybe Pierre will make comments how it's working now. It's still in development. But what happens to it? Will it just be implemented by Gauteng Health? What if Northwest is interested in it? What do we do? That's just one example. The second one, actually, Pierre and I later on at 6 o'clock, we are reporting to Portfolio Committee about this one. There comes a province, Northern Cape, saying, I have only 5 physical Tusong centers. I don't have the budget to spread across the province. What do I do? They said, why don't we develop a virtual Tusong center? They came and knocked at CPSI. So we are also supporting that. And fortunately for this province, the Premier is the ambassador of the project. Many frustrations. I will not go into them. Some of them have been mentioned. But we are working on that project and it's making progress. Just for them to be able to monitor, we want to see this solution sitting in the e-services portal and being transactional, that people can go there and actually do something, you know, transact on the system, rather than for you to go in and just find information, but you still have to walk to Home Affairs. I remember when I went for my appointment at Home Affairs, I was so excited because I made an appointment online. So excited. I get there, the system has been down since Friday. And I'm like, why didn't the system tell me? Don't bother coming because we are down. I went on a Monday. The system was off since Friday. And there I was. I had to go back home and reschedule and find another site, which I hoped they won't be offline. Fortunately, I was able to get assistance. Something that also excited me, I speak to my CFO. She says, I got my driver's a disc, my car disc in the office. I'm like, wow, E80s, are we there? Then I do it, delivered at work. But the problem, as they all said, silos. Imagine if all the services were integrated and were able to get any service at any time. It's a pleasure to interact with E80s now. They deliver at your office. Obviously, 100 rand for courier, but I don't mind to pay for the service. The same goes for, as an example, another one. It's not related to public service. Normally chat to the Uber drivers if I don't have a car that day. And they say, hey, you know, the taxi drivers, they're slower, you know. And I'm like, you know, market, I want to use an Uber because it's convenient for me. I don't mind to pay the prime price from my house to the office, rather than take a taxi from Pretoria North, where I stay, to CBD and catch another one to Arcadia. You know, I say, if people could understand that we all have different needs, I don't mind to pay for the Gautrain. Somebody else would rather take a taxi and so forth. So those are the challenges that we face. You'll be happy. Talking to education, my sister from Gauteng. We also run a youth digital skills program, because thinking of the future, what kind of a public servant do we want to bring in? So what we did, and we want to spread this to other areas in the country, we worked with St. John's College in Mthatha. for 2 years now. We are lucky last year. The president stole my program, but I was happy because he was going to the stadium for June 16. We were at St. John's running the youth digital skills program. And the shock when they said the president is going to stop over. You know, but what we do with the program, we went again this year. We use St. John's as an anchor and invite schools around that area to expose them to all these things. AI, whatever, you know, coding, drones, and so forth. We even had kids from EFATA, a school for the deaf and blind, this year. And what we did this year, we also added the teachers, because the teachers were saying, we are being left behind. Because kids play on their phone. You give them the assignment, they go ask ChatGPT. So, and it writes everything for them. But the message was, as educators, what do you do to bring in AI in your teaching, in your lessons and so forth? Because there's nothing you can do. They will go and ask ChatGPT, here's a question. They are not learning anything in the process. So instead of them shying away from AI, rather use it and say, what did you, I know you used it. What can you learn from it in the classroom? Rather than to say, we can't expose learners to AI and so forth. So that program, we pride ourselves very much, as you can see the numbers in this year, how many people we reached in terms of teachers and learners. And we had 20 partners participating in that. Some of them even built websites. I didn't know how easy it is to build a website. They built websites, kids that were not even exposed to such skills and so forth. What we did, we had a conference, is it already last month in Cape Town, and one of the winning teams from June 16 were brought in to join our hackathon, and for the first time we even brought in system developers, software developers from government to hack together with youth as well. So there we go. We're doing something in that field. And I would like to invite our partners here, please, next year when we do this skills development program, please come and support us so that we can spread the message throughout the country. Sorry, my voice is going now. And we also do a lot of institutional support, to make sure that, hospitals are innovative and so forth. So those are some of the projects. You can see some of the institutions that are approaching us. For instance, last year we were approached by Productivity SA to come and, work with us. They had an idea. We took the idea to the hackathon in August, and a team of public servants, software developers, came up with developed a solution which we will take forward obviously after the conference, so that Productivity SA can then implement the said projects. We also do a lot of design thinking sessions, exposing public servants to such. One program that I want to talk to, the last bullet point, is the Trailblazer program. Through our awards program, we find a lot of system developers in government that are not recognized in their own departments. So we award them, not much. We get partners to contribute a tablet, something that they can use back at the office, and you'll be shocked when they go back to their departments. Zimaza said from Eastern Cape that when I came back, suddenly the department, how we have you, Amasas, and they start supporting her. Another project that I want to give you an example is the digital fingerprint project, which uses specialized scanners to identify diseased bodies. Vellum for share, sitting in Bronkhorstspruit, looking at bodies that are unclaimed, thinking about families, whether they're going to get closure or not. Started using his own money. Contacted CSIR to say, I want to try this. I know you can only take live prints, but let's see if we can come up with something so that we can actually take prints from dead people to ID them so that families can get closure. paid over 2,000 from his own pocket because no one was listening. Very lonely journey for innovators. Entered our awards program, got a little bit of shine, and suddenly the project started running. We supported the replication of this project in 5 sites from our little budget, bought computers, scanners, and then collaborated with CSIR to work on their software. And as it is, in July, we handed it over to Gauteng. Actually, they nearly handed the project without us. And Pierre comes to my office and says, on Twitter, we are on their media statement, we need to be there. I say, Pierre, I don't do mortuaries, please. Said, you will go. So I went, it went well, the premier came through as well, but I was as sick as a dog. But yeah, because they were having lunch, we were invited to lunch. When we got there, it was not smelly, I promise you. Only to discover that they had not started working. So by the time we were finished with the formal program in the hall, we come back, and I'm like, something is smelling. I tell you, I ran out of that room like a bullet, because they started working, the postmortems and so forth. But I did go, Pierre, thank you very much for that. That's the project, so I spoke to it. So it was handed over, but we want to make sure that we roll it out to other provinces. But the question is, how do we do it? We already have a solution that's working. Will Treasury say we want 3 codes? I already have the solution, it's there. It's already there. I want it to be used by everyone in the public service. But yeah, I don't want to ask questions, but yeah, questions have to be asked. Because we are also frustrated. You get these wonderful things coming through, but what happens to them? Will they stay in Gauteng only, or the people that are interested in, but you can't take them elsewhere because of these rules that we live in? I think I've touched on the awards. I touched on the conference as well. Those are some of the things that we do, partnerships across the country and the continent, even internationally. Those are the networks that we are participating in. As I said, the innovator's journey is a lonely one. You can quote me on that one. That's me, saying that. But we use the awards program for a purpose. And I know a lot of people think the awards program at CPSA is just the awards ceremony. It is not. We use what comes out of the awards program. It fits into our annual performance plan. We take some of the projects and replicate them in preparation for mainstreaming. So it's not an event, it's a program. And I keep telling people, it's not just about, you saw where we're giving people awards. It's not about that. After the awards, we sit as a team, look at the, all the projects that came to, look at our pairs, whether we can afford it or not, and then decide what we replicate and so forth. Some of the projects actually that were maybe 2nd or 3rd place end up flourishing more than those that we awarded. For instance, I don't know if you are aware of Caring for Girls by Richard Mabaso, the guy behind the Nelson Track for Mandela. He was one of our finalists, but he's doing very well so far. The hackathon, I think I've touched on it as well. You see, if you talk a lot, you end up going ahead of your slides. But those are some of the innovators. Those are public servants, most of them, they are public servants, very own public servants that have done wonderful things. That's all we give them, a tablet, and it makes them happy as well. Please follow us on Twitter. Those are my LinkedIn account, and I thank you very much. I didn't want to say much in the presentation because I have notes for the panel discussion. So if I had put more, I would not be able to comment. I'll say more in the panel discussion. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Indeed, it is time for the panel discussion. I'd like to request the moderator, Mr. Madibi, Advocate Madibi, who's the Corporate and Legal Affairs Director at Microsoft, to come up together with the following panelists. DDG, Mlindi, if you can make your way up to the stage. Acting DDG and the chairperson of GTOC, Mr. Zaid. The chief strategist, amongst other things, at CETA, Mr. Mohashwa. Ms. Matshidiso Manaka, if you can make your way up to the stage. And again, Ms. Lydia Sbukedi, and my good friend, Mr. Govender Vino, and Mr. Dave Ives. Can we give them a nice, warm round of applause as they make their way up? I wonder if there's enough chairs here. Should I bring a lower?
That's fine, eh? Thanks, man. You're still in the end, eh? In the cloud, yeah. No. Do my best,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think firstly, just thank you for making the time to be with us until this very late in the afternoon. This is our very last session, so I'm hoping you could bear with us for another 45 minutes. We're gonna try and keep it nice, short, and crisp. I'm not gonna try and reintroduce all the panel members because I think that has been done already, Ray, right? Yes. So we've covered that. I've just got a short introduction. I think I need to read in into this panel before we start. And then I will proceed to just ask various questions to each panel members. Hopefully some of the questions will address the Q&A questions that came up earlier on that I think still need to be addressed by some of the speakers that conveniently are now part of the panel. I think from an introduction perspective, it's safe to say that technology has redefined work from hybrid work, big data, automation, customer experience, software suites, and more. Government services isn't known for being on the cutting edge of technology and has a reputation for being disjointed, slow, and tedious. Digitization presents a unique opportunity for government to finally face these challenges and stigmas head-on, powered by digital transformation. Digital transformation therefore refers to replacing legacy applications and manual processes with new technology throughout all aspects of an organization's operations to improve efficiency, effectiveness, customer experience, and service delivery. In the context of government sector, digital transformation involves using technology to improve public services and create better overall experience for citizens and businesses engaging with government offices. The goal of digital transformation in government is to create a more transparent, efficient, and responsive public sector that meets the evolving needs of citizens. It creates a fundamental shift of how government offices operate using technology to streamline processes, improve data management, and create a better citizen experience. Digital transformation in government can take many forms, including the replacement of outdated systems, the development of modern digital platforms, and the adoption of automation and artificial intelligence, AI, to improve service delivery and reduce operational costs. With this background, I would like to engage our esteemed panel to learn more about how we can overcome the challenges of digital transformation in government. We'll start let's start with gaining common understanding of the challenges and impediments for transformation in government. We have spoken about how crucial it is to modernize South Africa's government infrastructure for economic growth. So I think as the first question is, what are some of the specific areas that need immediate attention? What are some of the specific areas in relation to digital transformation that need immediate attention? And for this question, I will ask Mr. Mlindi from DCDT to answer, and I'll also ask Mr. Zaid to also answer. Just talk around what are some of the key impediments that we are seeing from a digital transformation perspective. Why is government lagging behind? What's holding government departments back from implementing radical digital transformation measures?
No, thanks, Program Director. I think there are a couple of things that I can talk about on this one, but just want to highlight just a few things. And one being, the access to the actual digital infrastructure and connectivity. I think we have spoken about it quite significantly here. So the challenge with that one is that, remember that from us as government, we do some interventions there and there where we see that the sector is actually failing. So one of the programs then being the SA Connect that we're trying to implement. I think these are some of the areas that we need to really focus on and make sure that, our citizens can have, access to connectivity. Because as you know that whatever we do in terms of digital transformation in government, we are trying to solve, the citizens' problems. So if the citizens have to transact with government, they need to be able to have the right connectivity at first. I think the second one that I just want to touch on is online government portals. I've mentioned earlier on that we do have the eservices.gov.za. That is our portal, because if you were to understand, the citizens, they don't want to remember that Department of Education's website is this one, Department of Health's website is this one. So they would like to have a one-stop shop, whereby that when you enter into this portal, you can transact, you can do anything on it. But also then in terms of, the data governance, and data privacy, I think in government, we generate quite a significant amount of data. That is a known fact. But the way we use it, I think that is where we need to strengthen on to say that, the data that we generate already in government, how can we use that data to make sure that it can assist us in digital transformation? I think the last point, Program Director, is the automation and AI integration. We do have quite a lot of cumbersome processes. I think the speakers, have presented and say that we do have all these processes that are siloed in nature, and some of them we can automate, quickly, and also, there are some decisions that we normally take as a country that you find that probably they are not the right decisions. And if we can use AI to assist us in taking some of the decisions and making sure that, we use AI responsibly and taking some decisions that are fundamental, I think they can assist us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Zaid, any additional input?
Thanks, and good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity. I think my reflection on this question in terms of immediate attention, of course, we understand the issues of silos, we understand the issues of not seeing the benefit. But I think if I had to highlight one or at least a few, let me start off with the issue of capacity and skills. I think this is the number one reason that I can identify that we are not making the progress that we should be making in government around digital transformation. We have access to technology. I think if we look across the room, if we ask the question across the room, do you have technology in your department? Most colleagues will say yes. Do we have the right people to implement that technology? No. Do we have the right number of people to implement that technology? No. And we've tried to popularize this number in the work that we do in the DPSA, the 0.3%. 0.3% refers to 4,500 people that work in IT units across 161 departments, servicing 1.2 million public servants and servicing 60-odd million citizens. 4,500 people is not a lot. I mean, I look across to my colleagues from the private sector. It's 0.3% is nothing. So we have some departments, of course, that have 2 people, a GTO or CIO, an administrator. And that's how this department or this organization must then drag itself into the digital space. It's impossible to do. So I think even when I look at the 4,500, more than 50% of that is dominated by infrastructure people, so the break-fix type of people, and management and administrators. So we talk about, I mean, the colleagues spoke about cybersecurity, and it really, I love cybersecurity. I'm a cybersecurity person myself. I look at the frameworks. I look at all of the work that needs to be done. We have 63 people that we can count for 161 departments that are designated, that have some kind of cybersecurity or information security role in the department, for 161 departments. So clearly the problem is capacity, but beyond that it's also skills, because we're not even counting, are the 4,500 people the right people? Do they have the right skills in the digital space to be able to do what we need to do? So the biggest problem, if you ask me to solve one, I would solve that first. Right? Then I think we have a problem with change management. Digital transformation for me is a change journey. It's not a technological journey. And if I reflect in the room, and I don't know everybody, granted, but I think we would probably say more than 80% are technology people. So we continue to talk to ourselves about the benefits of technology and the benefits of digitalization and the digitalization journey. I don't mean to be critical of the event. I think there's value, but I think it's my problem as well. When we talk amongst ourselves about technology, and we just can't seem to get to the right audience. And the right audience around change management is that we need to find these digital leaders, and they're not CIOs. I'm sorry. The digital leaders are those people that are passionate in organizations, that are able to drag that organization to success in terms of any digital technology deployment. And we'll find, even in the public service, Lydia will tell you, when we look at examples where digitalization has been successful, where we had good solutions deployed, you're going to find that's a doctor that deployed a health solution. The doctor took it upon himself to learn how to code, right? So clearly change management is another area. And then I think investment is in technology. And I know I've said we have technology, but I think we don't have enough technology. If we look at our spend, we spend less than 1% of our total expenditure as government on technology. Globally, governments spend upwards of 4%. So the problems are many, but I think if we just to summarize, if we can deal with the skills issue, we can deal with the access to the technology, the money issue, and we are, as technologists in government, we fight with our colleagues in service delivery around access to that technology. And let me stop there. I think we'll continue the conversation.
Okay, no, thank you for those insights. I quite like the point you made around talking to ourselves around technology. We really, and I think it's a common problem that we need to embrace in the room, because every time we organize this session, I mean, think about next week, we're all at GovTech next week. And what are we going to be doing there with exactly what we're doing here, right? We're going to be talking to other technology people about technology and still not getting to the audiences that we need to get to. The next question I want to raise, what is the most difficult part of digital transformation? And for this question, I will invite CD from Microsoft to just talk about, in your experience, especially from a private sector experience, what has been the most difficult part of talking to government and working with government in implementing and executing on digital transformation? And after CD, I will also invite Mr. Vino Govinda to just add a few words on that as well. CD?
Thank you, Program Director, and thanks, everybody. So before I answer your questions here, and I think it will be part of their answer, it's what Sane spoke to earlier, that we continue to talk. I sometimes look at the number of meetings that we have when we talk to a requirement in government. Before we even get to a point where we decide where do we want to go, we'll have like multiple meetings. And that becomes a challenge. My understanding is that information is everywhere. Before people start talking to service providers, they've already done like about 70% of the work that needs to be done. By the time they call you as a service provider, they already know where they want to go. It's amazing the number of time that we still spend in rooms to talk, and talk. That's the one part when it comes to the challenges that we face. And the second challenge that we face is around the citizen expectations. So sometimes so I find that government will stick to something that they decided 6 months ago, they stick to it. Citizen expectations change every day. One of the colleagues earlier spoke to the fact that he's got a 25-year-old. Same here. Our kids change all the time. When they decide on the holiday that they want to go to, when they decide on the type of school that they want, when they decide on the places that they hang out at, it gets impacted by where we are from a digital transformation point of view. If we are going to be sticking to a tender that came out 6 months ago and as the colleague said, then it gets cancelled and get reissued and get reissued and get reissued. What is it addressing? It's not addressing the problem statement anymore. It has now moved from the pain point that we needed to address. The third point that I want to talk to is bureaucracy in government. We always are scared to talk about these things. That's why we find the comfort zone of sitting together and talking to the same people, because we are comfortable to talk about it. Let's bring the decision makers in the rooms so that we can start challenging them and saying, do you understand what the impact is when you sit with that decision and you're not making the decision? It's very important that we bring in the right people. First, we bring in the same room. Let's bring the people that experience the service. Let's bring the service providers like ourselves, because we love the challenge. We also want to be challenged in terms of the things that we're not meeting. And let's bring in the decision makers into the room so that everybody is in the same room. Nobody is comfortable about the language that we understand with each other. I could share more and more, but I think for me, those are the top of mind. Thank you, Sia.
Mr. Governor.
Okay, so in terms of digital transformation, I'm just going to speak on my experience, which has been more predominantly in the private sector, because that's where we've run a lot of digital transformation projects, we call it that. But I'm sure those insights apply to public sector as well. And to your point that you raised earlier, I think the key one, difficulty is culture change and change management. Technology aside, because technology is technology, right? But when you're implementing these new application services and processes, if you do not pay equal or even more attention to changing the culture of that organization and attention to change management, you find a lot of resistance to that change, because people are threatened, people are adverse to change. So, one of those difficult challenges that needs to be addressed upfront as part of the plan is how do we manage change and culture change and embedding new culture, and I would call it in digital culture in an organization. So that's the one thing that we find as a difficulty. The second one, and I'm going to echo a lot of what you said earlier, Mr. Zaid, because even in the private sector, skills are short and scarce. My one colleague is sitting at the back. I mean, she was with me at an infrastructure company when we are driving digital transformation, largely in terms of processes, order-driven service orchestrations, those types of platforms. And you find that as you're going through these projects, people leave. And when they leave, the knowledge goes. It's tacit knowledge that they're building up on the fly as they move. So the skill shortage, I don't think is just endemic to a public sector environment. It's in the private sector as well. I'm sure you'd see that as well. The other one is, so everyone, the language I always heard was, so where's the strategy? Who owns the digital strategy? No individual person owns it. It's owned by the organization, by leadership, and they have a responsibility to take ownership of the strategy and drive it through. Having said that, there's two schools of thought, right? One is that the strategy is determined upfront, but the reality is that as you move through these projects, you learn new things, and the strategy kind of morphs and becomes emergent as well. And it puts a lot of people makes a lot of people kind of uncomfortable because then they reflect back to a storyboard that was painted up front. So I think it's very important that, when you're building your teams, that you have teams of individuals that can cope with change on the fly. I think that's important. And the last one, the last point is, I'll just close up with this, is the ability to prioritize. And I mean, in public services sector, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe when we're delivering public service to citizens, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to be a template against which you kind of prioritize the applications and services that we deliver. But that could be just one metric, right, or one reference point. Maybe the other one should also be look at effort versus return, But we need to have, depends on the organization, but choose a prioritization method and develop that, that application, infrastructure, roadmap at front, because then, it gives people some direction, but you also understand that as we're going through this, roadmap, things will evolve. But we're doing the things that have that meet the needs of our stakeholders, but with also balances the allocation of resources, which is scarce, against gaining the maximum impact that you want to achieve.
Thank you for those insights. And then for the next policy, I mean, in order to enable digital transformation, we have to have the right policies in place. Do we feel that South Africa is at a point where we've got the enabling policy environment from a digital transformation perspective, or are there measures that we need to undertake to accelerate that, to ensure that we operate within the framework that everybody is aware of, that from a policy perspective, this is where we're going? And I'm taking DPSA and DCDT as key policymakers to just weigh in on this one. Mr. Mlindi can go first. It's not on? Yeah, it is on.
No, it's on. No, thanks, Program Director. I think on that one, I think I need to start on the point that Zaid highlighted, the skills development. That's the area that we did pick up, quite some time ago. In terms of the policy interventions, that we developed a National and Digital Future Skills Strategy, which highlights that as we are trying to drive these digital technologies, we need to have a tech-savvy society, but also we need to have the government that can be able to operate and use these technologies. So we do have that strategy in place already. We are implementing that strategy. It was approved in 2020. I think the likes of Microsoft would have approached them in part of supporting us in terms of, from the society point of view of trying to build the capacity on that. But also I think I would appreciate to the converted, in terms of the e-government strategy roadmap that we did from 2017, which is one that has led us to the development of the e-services portal, which is e-services.gov.za. But also, the other policy that is in place is the SA broadband policy, which then assists us in terms of, the interventions from the state in terms of, delivering the broadband services. There's quite a few more that we are looking into, and I think the one that I want to talk about as well is national cloud and data policy. I know that we are actually far behind on that one, because cloud adoption has really accelerated in the country. We did gazettes that drafted in 2021, went to a colloquium. A lot of things happened in between, but we are reviving that process. We should have that policy again finalized in the next 2 months. So we will have that gazetted as well. And the other one that we are looking into is the Digital Government Act. So last year we went to a process of developing, the green paper, because the fundamental was that, the countries that have been successful in terms of digital government did put that in legislation, so that, the institutional mechanisms, they are in place, the funding is in place, all the departments that needs to work on that, they are in place. So we did a green paper. We're gonna try to revive that one so that at least by next year we can have that, at least a policy on that one in place. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the AI. If we were to see, the impact of AI, especially regenerative AI, in terms of, how it can actually change the jobs and everything. So we see that, if we don't deal with that from the policy and legislation point of view, we will be failing the country because the AI adoption is coming in very fast as well. So we have just started the process, with our policy branch of how we can actually develop the policy around AI. So I think those are the key policy interventions that we're trying to work on at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good feedback. That really talks to some of the key issues that I think we're seeing in the market. So that the department is doing something about those key issues, I think that's very good feedback. Thank you for that. Over to you.
Sure, thanks. Look, the policy question is always a question that we have to deal with, being the DPSA. To a certain extent, I'm with my brother here on my left. I want to just code and get things done. We are technologists. We see a solution, we see a problem, we want to join it up together, and we want to go. And of course, we are also a government and state. We need to make sure that we can have some of these good policies in place. And I think as a country, we've had many policies in place, enabling policies from going back 20 years, in fact. We've had some good policies, and I don't think any government department, HOD, can say to us that there's no policy that requires them to digitalize, transform their business operations with technology. It's been existing for more than 20 years, right, in various shapes or forms. So clearly the problem or the lack of progress is not necessarily only related to a lack of guidance or policy or strategy. I mean, Lindy's spoken about all the strategies. We have strategies. At the same time, of course, we are trying to deal with certain fundamental issues. We are concerned with government departments, the engines that are running inside departments and how they can be optimized. And so we want to address some of the underlying governance matters. We want to address some weakness in general controls on IT, lack of leadership, poor oversight, all of these nuts and bolts issues we are trying to deal with from a DPSA perspective. So we've published many directives in the last 2 years to deal with governance of IT. We've published a cloud directive, and that's been quite successful in that it is really the only piece of paper that is encouraging departments to start to adopt cloud. We can tell you from a compliance perspective, we have more than 60 departments that have submitted compliance requests already to us, meaning these departments have pulled the trigger very deliberately on cloud technology deployments, which is quite good. And we're seeing some progress as a result of that cloud policy/directive. We are busy with directives, rules, I would call them. We implement our policies through norms and standards, and they are implemented then specifically through directives that we publish, just so that you understand the terminology for those that are not in public sector. We're developing one on data management because we recognize that the capability is not there in departments to manage data in a mature manner. And so we've really got to start from scratch. The basic building blocks. Do you have a data management policy in place? Do you have a structure? It's a governance structure or not? Have you taken certain decisions about what you want to do with your data? Who owns your data? In individual departments, but in branches, in units. And these things really, this is the nuts and bolts stuff, that the hard work that must be done to enable all of the other fancy stuff that we want to do. AI is not going to work if you've got no data, right? It's just nothing to process. Right? File not found, I don't know. So we've also looked at information security. We've recently published a directive on information security, and that's to establish a baseline. Again, to bring all departments up to a minimum baseline in terms of what their security posture should be, what are some of the practices that they must be putting in place, what is the governance that they must put in place. Really, we are about the nuts and bolts at this point, right? And creating the maturity. Then, quite importantly, we are developing a digital government policy framework in partnership, let me say, with DCDT. We are really working hand in hand with DCDT to try to give us a broad overview of where we want to be, create a vision for digital transformation. And that vision is not necessarily talking about the nuts and bolts, but it's talking about how we want to become more transparent. How do we gain the trust of citizens into the future? So what do we need to do from a technology perspective? Issues of open data, right? Open platforms. issues of sharing platforms. How do we create government platforms? How do we start to not develop 161 individual platforms? How do we start to create government platforms? And so, and this work is quite exciting work that's coming around that. And there's quite a bit of work that we're doing in the policy space. I'll stop there, but let me finish off by simply saying that for now we are focusing on creating an enabling environment, trying to diagnose the problem. We've had good policies in place for the last 20 years. Why have we not seen that transformation? Exactly. And so we've got to go back and dig a little bit deeper, pick around the noise and try and figure out what the problem is. And we hope we've got it right.
Thank you for that. And I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to try and up the ante a little bit now. I want to invite for this next question, I think both Dave and Ms. Lydia. And the question is really around how can digital transformation be a priority for organizations that have other big issues to deal with? So how do you bring in the decision makers into the room to get them to prioritize digital transformation? Because every organization always has other big issues that they have to deal with. How do you push it all the way up to the top?
I think for me the problem is sense of agency, like my sister said. You need to take action. You can have policies and what have you, but until the accounting officer says, we shall, let's, as a team, we'll go this way, and actually start, nothing will happen. So there's no sense of agency. I'm sorry, I'm a public servant as well, but in most departments, there's no sense of agency. It's like, I'll not say the name of the project, but a cabinet memo was approved in 2005, and that project still has to see the light of day. You know it. I don't want to compromise my job, but it's true. 2005, when cabinet said, yes, we'll go this way. Do you expect departments to wait till now if they want to go and then digitalize or, all those things? Do you want them to wait since 2005? So there's no sense of agency. I don't know what needs to be done. I hear there's an interministerial committee. There was one during COVID, I think it's 2021 or so, and my minister invited me to that session, but everything went quiet. I'm glad I'm here because now I know it's being revived. I don't know how I'll make sure that I'm there to support my minister. The FOSSAT thing, I didn't even know, but Pierre will need to make sure that if there's FOSSAT that talks to these issues, please make sure that we are there as well. The legislation, as we've said. But I want to say as well, we need to be careful. Our manual processes are not in order. Garbage in, garbage out. So are we, in the meantime, streamlining and make sure that manual processes are right? Before you can even talk about digitization and digitalization and digital transformation, our processes are not right. Are we going to digitize garbage and expect that somehow the citizen will get the joy out of the services? We need to make sure that, somebody mentioned the Big Bang approach. We need to make sure that these things come, we test and pilot and make sure that the systems are robust enough for them to be taken to another level. This Big Bang approach doesn't work. People flood the system and it collapses. Again, there's another example, I don't want to say it, where, it was open, people were excited and it's collapsed within a few minutes. But now, the people have it right. People can go online and book for their kids to go to grade 1 and grade 8. That's a queue for that one. Mission-oriented approach to digital transformation is important. I attended a session at NSG and they were talking about, what China's done in terms of poverty. And we come in as South African, we say we have a poverty alleviation, framework and what have you. But go to Google now and look at stats of unemployment. They're going up. Exclude COVID period. They are predicted even to go up. What is the strategy talking to the problem? Maybe I'm too practical. It's not giving, it's been there, but why are the stats going up if you're trying to address a problem? Can we stand there and say we have a poverty alleviation strategy? But it's not solving the problem for years. So I don't know, there's just something in terms of how we do strategy. As an enacted, what is it? That word? English has gone back to English. You know, when I ask my colleagues, what must I say when I come to the panel? And Nsizwa said to me, the computer killed the typing pool. Remember the typing pool? And the narrative that women can only go and work in the typing pool. I used to work in a hospital. We did have a typing pool. But it didn't take jobs away from people. Actually, it enabled the typing pool, the typist, to learn more skills. Why can't we retrain, you know, some of our people to have these skills? I'll reserve my other comments for the last question. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, so if I reflect back of comic, but realism is really important. I think to our purpose and our mission and what we're trying to achieve, policies is probably not an issue. If you take the data example, there's the Dharma, there's the Data Management Book of Knowledge, there's methods, there's the Data Governance Principle, etc. They're all there. What we find is bringing people in and training them on data lakes and Dataverse is not going to help. You've got to make sure they follow the principles, follow the practices, and they actually have good data management practices and principles in place. Every project needs to have that layered in. So if you don't have a data migration, data quality strategy with every project, you're probably going to fail. The basics are there. So if that's not part of the policy and you're not checking that from an accountability framework perspective, you're likely to fail. If you implement robotic process automation, there's a lot of opportunity there, right? But automate a bad process becomes a fast bad process. Great, you've just done nothing. So I think you need to have people that are there who understand the process. They can't just be the team in IT wanting to deploy, in my opinion, advanced Visual Basic macros to do things that potentially somebody hasn't gone and thought about. Do we really need this process anymore? What do you break down? What do you stop before you start? You can't add unless you subtract. And it's a really important environment. So when we think about these processes in government and we think about what happens in the private sector, we have to do the same thing. You can't just take a process and just implement RPA or hyper automation or whatever the cool tool is that we talk about. And we think about that, and it's a very important facet because that is not done in isolation. That's done together with the business, for the business, owned by the business. And data is not owned by IT. Data is owned by the business. So if you're in the misconception that you own the data, well, you're wrong. Don't worry. The citizens out there own the data, and that's a very important area. So you need to provide the practices to help them manage their data better. The onus might be, but the responsibility sits in the private sector. Executives can go to jail because of data breaches. So it's very important from an accountability framework perspective. Don't think that you don't have an important opportunity to go to talk to somebody, because the responsibility matrix tells you that people in a board of directors are responsible for the sort of things that go on from a business process perspective. So we think about people, process, and tech, and honestly, I agree. I think we're not investing potentially effectively. So it's not about just investment. It's about effective investment in the right areas from the fundamental perspective. And I think that there is definitely an opportunity to relook at where we can put skills, because that's the next question, and we all know about that. And do we have an answer? Definitely not. I think we'll all rack our brains, but there is some opportunity to alleviate the pressure in that space, and we need to act fast. I think it's important. We also don't want our skills exiting just because we don't take action. I mean, the onus is upon us as senior leaders in the IT sector to do something about it. I think it's important for us, and I think everybody's focusing on that as well. But for us, I think what's important, the frameworks are there, the policies are there, we just need to execute on them. And I think there's an execution gap, not only in the public sector, but in private sector as well. Yeah. So just to be fair, I think sometimes we can take I don't have a conversation today in the private sector that doesn't include somebody from business who cares about it from an accountability perspective. So every IT organization conversation generally has somebody who's worried about it from a business perspective. So that's, and if that's not happening, well, then there's another conversation to be had, because somebody's definitely needs to be responsible.
Thank you, Dave, for that. And then I think, again, mindful of time, I'm going to just ask one common question. I think I will ask each speaker to just throw in one or two comments, and it's really around skills, which is, I think, a subject that anybody can deal with. And what can governments do to compete with private organizations in finding and retaining the talent to fuel their digital transformation journey? I'm going to maybe start, Lindy, I'm going to start on your side. Just one or two comments on the skills issue and how do we use that to really fuel the transformation journey?
No, thank you. I think in terms of skills, government, I think we are not attracting skills at a younger age, I must say. Even the ones that we attract at a younger age, you probably say, if in government's terms, say you get in, say you are your assistant director. But now, you know, the process in government is that before you move into the next level, you need to have spent 3 to 5 years before you move in. By the time you get to like 35, 36, you know what, you know, by that time you're still like on the lower levels, which I feel that is actually one of the areas that we need to improve as government. To say that if we want to attract, you know, especially on the ICT, we need to start attracting younger skills, younger people that are quite fresh, but also not only looking on them like just coming in on a much lower levels, but you can see that, you know, you can start probably at a DD level, deputy director level, then at least you can say that at least those people can be competing from, you know, in terms of the pay from what the market is actually currently paying. So if we can look onto that, I think that would be fundamental what we need to do.
So we need to really look at the insistence on extensive experiences for ICT jobs, basically.
But also that's just the last point. Also, normally, you know, on some areas where I did work on, where you can actually have a career path growth on the technical side, not going towards management. Because the moment, say, you go to deputy director, you go to director, then you're seen to be a manager. But we need to have a career path whereby people can grow on those levels, but just purely focusing on technical.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. CD?
Thank you. That was a great point. So for me, it's about retaining the skill that you have. I think government has, we do have capable people in government. We have engaged those type of people that have got the skills. And the most important part for me is how do we retain that skill? How do we make the people that have the skill to be recognized? And because once we recognize what they do, then they'll continue to do more. What I have realized in government is that people end up using government as a park station. So they go to government because they want to study other things. So they want to do their MBAs and they want to do their masters, and they use government as a park station. So it is important for us to ensure that we retain that skill that we have in government. Thank you, Sia.
Because they leave after, once they've obtained those skills, it becomes a launchpad for a private sector job. Ms. Lydia?
Thank you so much. I think for me, it's more like when he said 0.3%, what do you do with those? Can't we reskill them? You know, for them to be able to do all these other things? Cyber security, Mr. Cyber Security said, you know, he's very excited that we're talking about these things. Start reskilling people to be able to do these other things rather than be where they are. As an example, I know it's a very basic thing. Why can't a PA generate a QR code for a meeting, for registration, or for declaration of interest? It's something that they can do. You know, Microsoft, removing the paper that we signed there. You know, those are things that you can empower people in. I've been saying to PA, we want to train some of our administrators to become drone pilots, you know, so that they can also talk about drone technology. And it opens up the career for them, even if it's not within government, for them to have new skills and so forth. I'm waiting for that submission. I want those guys to go. You know, NSG, I'll tell you, sorry, I talk a lot. In 2018, I went for a 2-day design thinking course at University of Stellenbosch Business School. I came back and made noise. I'm telling you, it's only now that NSG will be launching it. But I've been screaming all these years to say, you should put it in your suite of courses, including the famous AI, robotics, and data analysis, and all those things. I'm not saying ethics is not important. It is important, but I'm not sure how much you can teach me in a class to say, Lydia, be ethical. It's more than being in a class and tell you to be ethical. You know, it values how you are brought up and so forth. Yes, it's important to create awareness. But why don't we have courses on 4IR skills at NSG? Sorry, Busani will kill me, but I'm just saying we should be training our own people in these skills as well. Yeah, but as an example, I have 2 cleaners at work. Nkepile is a cleaner because I'm so short-staffed. She's working in HR as well. I have another cleaner, Joyce. I gave her a bursary to study supply chain management. So it can be done. You can reskill your people. Thank you.
Mr. Zaid.
Question around how do we compete with private sector? We don't compete with private sector. We shouldn't compete with private sector. I don't want to compete with private sector. I think we've got to make choices about what it is we want to do ourselves and what we want to partner with. Government shouldn't be running data centers. Government shouldn't be chasing desktops and break fixes. It's too, these things are commoditized, right? Private sector does it better than us, right? So there's a certain amount of, a level of infrastructure that we should simply just buy from somebody, right? At a good price, because we have 161 enterprises with 1.2 million employees. We really can bargain the best price for their desktop and for the seat management of that desktop, right? So that's where we need to start in terms of figuring out what we want to do ourselves and what we want to partner with, right? Then I've got 1.2 million brains, at least warm seats. That's my biggest asset in government currently. And if I want to be successful from a digital transformation perspective, I need to get many of those, not necessarily into IT, doing IT things, but being excited about digital technologies, right? So that the technologies are going to, I mean, I don't have to tell Microsoft where the technology is going. But your CEO said something which was quite fascinating to me, and he was saying that systems are going to be developed by the end users. That's their trajectory, right? So how do I make my end users excited to want to use the technology? That's the best fit for me. I'm never going to be able to chase that IT organization and be able to be another SaaS that has 700 people and their strategy is to fully outsource all their system development with 700 internal people. Every department can't afford that. So I think it's a good approach. Getting it done is a difficult thing. How do we, if I could get 1% of that 1.2 million to start to become technologists. I also have a problem of the aging public servant. They're telling us that we are too old, we're too gray. We're on our way out, 1 foot out of the door. They want to give us packages, say go away, right? Because we want young people to come into the public service. And when young people come into the public service, unfortunately now they're coming in to do HR. They're coming in to do SEM. They're coming in to do all of those other admin type works. When we know that majority of young people are excited about technology. Whether they've studied technology or not, they are excited about technology. And so I think we need to think about how we can collectively start to influence the shape of government, the look of government, to be able to really use our best assets at the 1.2 million people, in my view.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
I think my job's done. So I'm actually a chemical engineer, but I'm much better now. And my secret power is I brew beer, which is probably not a good thing, but so it was a really good thing for me. But the reality is I got into tech because of my interest in tech. And I got my interest in tech because I felt that I could do a better job than the electrical engineers when I was commissioning plants. And I was probably wrong, but that's okay. But if I look at the programs that we've run where we've cross-skilled entomologists, agronomists are wonderful people. Hey, they're incredible. So the first AI drone pilot has just beaten a human by 0.5%. You know, 0.5 seconds. I'm terribly sorry. Drone pilots are now out, but a huge opportunity. We were doing canvas coverage and work in the farming sector, and that's crazy because if you think about the opportunity for food security, water security, etc., the innovation is going to happen at the edge. So I'm completely on board because we're thinking narrow skills IT. That's not the future opportunity. And I think if I look at what we've been doing, and as running a private sector consulting business, we took so many multi-skilled capability sets and cross-skilled them. And our little business scaled exceptionally fast when we stopped our fixed mindset and went into a growth mindset, that anybody can actually do this. So today in PwC, there's an interesting thing. I don't know if I should be sharing this, but we have a workbench where people build their own tools on Power Apps and Power BI, etc. The diffusion of that technology is frightening. And we're starting to having to manage that, and people are coming up with ideas. It's quite crazy. I think Wandile can cite the examples. But in our network alone, we've got great people that are come from the accounting background who love building cool solutions to solve the problems at the customers. And those are the guys that we're trying to stop, put the guardrails in place, and let them go. So I think maybe the reframing opportunity for the growth mindset is a very, very different discussion. And potentially we've been too focused on what does an IT skill look like, and that is happening at the edge. And that's a frightening thing for people in IT. But yet there is capabilities to guardrail this and doing it, because ethics is not about how you, yeah, you're right. It's how you grew up. It's your values. As long as those guardrails are in place, you can let the technology go. So yes, 1.2 million people are a massive opportunity.
Thank you, Dave. Last word to you, Mr. Governor.
Yeah. So, we'll answer the question this way. I mean, what we're solving for is what we know is a skills shortage, or is a skills deficit. But what we do know is there is a pool of skills that we do have. So, our approach should be is how do we best leverage that pool of skills for everyone's benefit. And for me, when we look at public-private partnerships, it's often the conception that it's an investment thing, right? Public-private partnership is a private sector will fund, invest, build, operate, transfer, and that kind of thing. But public-private partnership also means that, if those skills reside predominantly in the private sector, how then do we partner with the private sector to gain access to those skills? And I can tell you, I deal with a number of vendors, and each of these vendors, including Microsoft, have a complex certification stream, right? Or certification part. That's where the skills come in, right? You can be moved from a normal analyst to a architect to a solution developer. It gets complex. So and what you then get is very guys who are highly skilled, but once again short in demand. So I think just changing that approach from a skills perspective in terms of partnering with private sector to get access to the skills and capability, that would be the one key thing that I could pick up on. And the other thought around skills is, and I think someone mentioned it earlier on, is then how do you when you in an organization, whether it's public sector or private sector, identify individuals at different levels and give them exposure to digital technologies. The one thing that we kind of figure out in one of the organizations that I worked at was, the word is low code, right? The world, code used to be complex, but there's a lot of room for low code. And guys were developing their own solutions in their own departments using these low code platforms. Guess what? IT comes through and says, no, everyone's creating shadow. The term they used was shadow IT. So they took access away from them. And then in doing that, you get these employees disillusioned, and then they don't have a sandbox environment to play safely in. You've essentially stifled innovation. So I think it's, from a skills development perspective, over and above the practical, I would call it theoretical skills training, create a conducive environment for innovation, create those sandbox environments, and if look at the risk versus the impact, and don't cut employees or individuals off from experimenting and finding innovative solutions to the problems that they're facing in their areas of work.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a great panel, an exciting one, and Ray, I think that's it. We're not taking questions, right? Yeah, no, it's too late in the day.
Yeah, unless there is really a pressing question. Is there?
No,
I don't see any hands. 3, 2, 1. No, I don't see any hands.
No, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's wrong with us?
All right, thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of the And if you do have a program in front of you, my name is not Matsidiso. Because I know there are some that will be looking at the program and say, okay, Matsidiso again. No, my name is Ray. Matsidiso was on the stage. So we really want to express gratitude at this point in time. And we want to start off by thanking the online participants. There's a whole cohort of people that have joined us online, I think over 108 people that have spent the day with us. So in the spirit of inclusiveness, we sincerely hope that you did have, or you did benefit from the experience as much as the on-site participants did. So indeed, thank you for your time. Secondly, we want to thank all the speakers. I won't go through all of them one by one, but we'll acknowledge their organizations. So from the Digital Council, the DPSA, CPSI, CETA, PwC, Microsoft, and of course the DCDT. We really do appreciate your insights and the thoughts that you have actually shared. Also importantly is all the participants that managed to join physically. We do live in a hybrid world, so physical, online, those are the approaches that have been found to work quite appropriately. The last thing I want to just touch on is just reflecting on how pivotal or how important. I think one of the speakers mentioned that it has to be about action. And I think with all that has been said and picking up as well from the panel discussion, there's certainly intent. And if you listen to what Zaid was saying as well, to say there's indication from various entities that are putting their hands up to say, let's work together, help us, we're ready to go on to the journey. And it's really that sort of intent that's going to enable all of us in the organizations we're involved with to create solutions, to collaborate importantly, and ensure that the citizen at the end of the day benefits from the various engagements. The last thing, or the second last thing I want to just touch on is, of course, we are in Public Sector Month, and I think very appropriate for us to have this event during this month. I've certainly benefited a lot, and I've also learned from the engagements today. And truly, really in the spirit of Public Sector Month, continuing on that journey to ensure that the goal of innovation remains prevalent in everything that we do, servicing and ensuring that the citizens, I heard the same message over and over again to say, I wish we were this efficient to be able to get the delivery, whether it's booking an appointment, etc. So the goal is indeed to get to that point where there's a whole lot of efficiency. So to thank you all again, thank you very much for your interactiveness or your participation. And I don't know when the next one is, but we're certainly looking forward to it. Before we close, just one more request. Where's Jeanette? It's Jeanette's birthday. Don't you think it's a good idea for us to sing? I don't have much of a voice, but it's happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Thank you very much. Last but not least, I'm going to thank myself for thank you. So thank you. Thank you very much. We've come to the end. Please, two things. You're welcome to join us for some drinks and some snacks just outside through the foyer on the left. There's some drinks and some snacks. And the last thing would be the demos. The demos will be available on the screen here. The team is ready, and they'll be available to share these demos with you. Thank you very much. Good evening.